Here. Everything is decided here. You cannot comprehend the magnitude, the rapture and the tragedy of this moment, and yet you must. This is the sublime moment of our undoing, the ineffable fulcrum upon which swings the entirety of our history. You must understand, our presence here doesn't alter history. You and I meet here because we are compelled to. We have always met here. We are merely passengers on the wheel of destiny, describing a perfect circle to this point. I've seen the beginning and the end of our story, however, and the tale is crude and ill-conceived. We must rewrite the ending of it. You and I. What you feel is the pull of history rushing to meet us. This is where history and destiny collide. We're hurtling towards our destinies. Even now, the time stream strains to divert itself. The future is reshuffling itself to accommodate your monumental decision. This is where we restore ourselves. This is where we reclaim our intended destinies. It's all laid out for you here. I'll not ask you to trust me. Your truths are for you to discover alone. There's a third option. A monumental secret hidden in your very presence here. But it's a secret you have to discover for yourself. It's all laid out for you here.
The sky's so far away tonight, but I can't lose this one. Get a pride of a falling night. Thought that I was fit to fight for us to be. You gave me life for loving me. Tell me where did we go so wrong?
Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be taking you beyond the veil this evening. Mrs. Gio will be joining us here in just a few moments. She just got up from her beauty rest and she's preparing. We have a couple of other things going on too that she's taking care of for us while I start the show. So today is, I don't like to date our shows, but today is January 18th, 2021. A lot going on around the Capitol building. Big potential for something huge to happen on January 20th. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I wanted to talk about Operation Trust as well. I've started to piece together some of the puzzle pieces of this whole QAnon situation, the QAnon shaman, and everything that's been going on. And I've been privy to a lot of information over the last 5 years that I've talked about in previous shows, particularly shows like this one here that I'm going to put up on the screen here. Operation Bluebird, CIA document where we go over Operation Bluebird, what Operation Bluebird is, and so on and so forth. So this was done June 5th, 2019, and this related to the Blue Avians. It related to a lot of stuff that's going on right now. This QAnon shaman guy is kind of tying everything in together for me and everything that's going on in the Capitol building. So I don't even know where to begin with this show because there is so much information to go over. First and foremost, I guess it's worth mentioning a few things that are going on in the news right now. I've got some notes here. I was going to go over articles, but I figured, you know what? I'm just going to skim through them real quick. Capitol building was evacuated for a homeless camp fire, which is very strange. Supposedly there was a homeless camp outside. There was conflicting reports, though. Other people were saying that the Capitol building was actually locked down because of that fire. Supposedly right outside a homeless camp, somebody's belongings just all of a sudden just burst into flames, and so they locked down, or evacuated the Capitol, conflicting information there. One of the things I did want to point out, though, is I wanted to point out some of the security that they have over there at the Capitol, because this is not sitting right with me at all. So I'm going to play this video for you really quick in the background while I talk about this. So at the Capitol building right now, this is the security fence that they've set up, and they've sent out thousands, tens of thousands of troops out there right now to for this inauguration that's going to happen in 2 days, and we will be here with you through the course of the inauguration as well. We'll go live on January 20th, so we'll do the same thing that we did on January 6th, and we'll be breaking news and going through everything in real time. But you see, this is a picture of the Capitol building wall that they've erected, and I've seen many different videos. So it takes more than one video to convince me of something, but it seems like they're planning something huge on the 20th. And this perspective here, if I'm correct, is from the outside barrier of the Capitol building. You see these walls right here? This is from outside looking into the Capitol building facility where all the guards and everybody are stationed at. Well, if you take a look at the security walls, they're backwards. They're completely and totally backwards. And I've been getting this message over and over again. If you're following me on Facebook, you've probably heard me talk about this, but facebook.com/officialchrisgeo. I talked about this yesterday, and how I've been getting this intuition over and over and over again that the walls are to keep people in. They're not to keep people out. They're to keep people in. They're not to keep people out. So I did a whole full hour video about that. Oh, it was about half hour video about that yesterday on Facebook. But the reason that I did is because I kept getting this intuition, but I'm not a psychic. I'm not anything like that. I am a code writer and a code breaker. I go into the ayahuasca realm and I work with code. I don't make predictions about the future. The future, especially now, it's not running on a computer script anymore. There's so many different variables that can change things. So I try to stay away from predictions as to what's going to happen, and especially dates. However, there are some dates like January 20th where we can look at and say this date is primed for something huge to happen. And so I went ahead and posted the intuitions that I was getting about January 20th. And sure enough, if you take a look at this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these barriers here, you see how these everything's constructed this way. So when you go up close, you can see this is where the construction and the welding of the barriers actually is, of the grate. And that's facing towards the street. It's not facing towards the Capitol building. Well, anybody can come in with the right tools and start taking this grate down from the outside, which is why, in my humble opinion, you would want to position this on the opposite side, facing the other way, not facing that way. And people have pointed out in many different pictures that you can see the bolts and everything facing towards the street. I'm looking down here, but it's hard to tell down here at the very bottom. I can see this L shape right here, no doubt about that. Is there another L shape on the other side? It's hard to tell. I would say yes, there is, but I would imagine that you want these L shapes to be facing away from the Capitol building. You'd want this on the inside of the Capitol building, because if you try to push this down, this is going to create resistance. But unless there's some on the other side as well, which there very well could be, it's hard to tell in the video. But it looks like they've set these up completely and totally backwards. Like, these are meant to keep people in rather than keep people out. So I know that Joe Biden right now, he's freaking out. He's asking the U.S. Army to give him a register and a roster and relocate people who are who have donated to the GOP, who might be loyal to Trump. He's asking for new Secret Service. He's being denied on some fronts. On other fronts, it's being accepted. Nancy Pelosi called General Milley's office and was talking about how Trump is this huge threat, et cetera, et cetera. General Milley basically told her to go F herself and said, "I'm not going to violate my constitutional oath. I'm loyal to the president." He didn't say he was loyal to Trump, but he said, "I'm loyal to the president until he's no longer president. So I'm going to do whatever whatever the president says, but I actually have an article here pulled up here somewhere. Here it is. Pelosi presses Pentagon on safeguards to prevent Trump from ordering military action. So even the Democrats can kind of feel like something is coming up the pike. Everybody feels like something's going to happen on January 20th. So I think it's going to be a huge show. It's going to be a huge show, but man, there's so much to go over in regards to this. Of course, John Sullivan was arrested. I don't have that article up on my screen, but let me pull this up real quick. John Sullivan. If you watch the 12-hour live stream we did on January 6th, people were sending us information in real time. And this guy right here, as they were sending information in real time, I pointed him out and I said, this guy's Antifa 1,000%, 1,000% Antifa. As it turns out, yes, he is 1,000% BLM. He was arrested in Utah for more BLM protests, and he was also arrested on January 6th. The interesting thing about this guy is he was going in there and he was filming himself rallying anti-Trump supporters or Antifa or Black Lives Matter who were there at the Capitol building, and he was instigating them. This is according to the FBI documents, according to the indictment itself that Cherie actually has. But according to the indictment, the video that he was taking shows him rallying anti-Trumpers, going in there and saying, "Let's go, let's get Trump, let's get Trump." Even though Trump wasn't in the Capitol building at the time, he was rallying people up to go in there into the Capitol building, and he was the first one to breach the Capitol building. Now, there were a few that followed along, a few Trump supporters, in my humble opinion, so it was a mix of everything, but the truth is starting to come out, and it may actually get banned here on YouTube. I don't know. I'm just going by what the FBI indictment is saying. But this guy's 100% BLM, and we called it on January 6th. He also has footage of him encouraging Ashley Babbitt to jump through the window before she was shot. So he's also responsible for her murder or death as well. I mean, she takes her own responsibility for going into the Capitol building, but I think she was one of those opportunist Trump supporters that happened to be there who followed BLM and Antifa into the Capitol building when the Capitol building was first breached. So we're starting to get a clearer picture as to what went on January 6th. And we're starting to get a clearer picture on what's gone on, throughout 2020 and going all the way back to 2015, 2014, 2012. This has been a huge, huge, huge operation in the making. And this has been something that spanned a decade. This is a decade-long operation that we're dealing with here. And I'll explain how that is here in a few moments. But I got to say, spot on 1,000% about our analysis about this guy here, who is the prime instigator of the Capitol situation on January 6th. And it's false flag. It's problem, reaction, solution. You create a problem, then you can have a reaction, then you bring in your solution. The reaction right now is impeachment. Lindsey Graham, I think I have an article here, is actually now backtracking, where before he was pushing everybody to vote the Electoral College and vote for Biden. And just a caveat for YouTube, there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud, regardless of what the videos show, regardless of what the data shows, regardless of all that. No evidence whatsoever, because that's YouTube's terms and conditions. However, Lindsey Graham is now asking the Senate to dismiss the impeachment against Trump, and consequently, impeachment is articles of impeachment are being introduced on January 21st on Joe Biden, if and when he's inaugurated on the 20th. So he's going to be impeached literally the day he gets in, and this is brought by a Republican representative. And in my humble opinion, they're going to let it go through because it's never been about Biden. It's always been about Harris. It's always been about trying to bring Harris in, and maybe even impeaching Harris as well, because she was doing the same thing that they're accusing Trump of doing. So if they impeach Trump based on him, on his speech where he was calling for peace, and saying go march to the Capitol peacefully. Well, Kamala Harris was saying go out there and destroy stuff. And because she was saying go out there and destroy stuff, they might actually try to impeach her, which has always been the plan, to bring in Nancy Pelosi as president. We called this way back in July of 2022. I mean, July 22nd of 2020. And we played the video, and I don't want to play it again because I don't want to be redundant, but Pelosi says, you know, we're going to use mail-in ballots. Trump is going to be fumigated out of the White House, whether he knows it or not. And we've got all this money for mail-in ballots. And then she looks at Joe Scarborough and she says, Joe knows how it's done. You know, the Republicans used to rush in with their mail-in ballots and absentee ballots, and they'd flip the election like that. And she says, we know how it's done. We know how it's done, you know, over and over and over again. No evidence of widespread voter fraud whatsoever. I'm just telling you what Nancy Pelosi has said. And Nancy Pelosi has also called for violence as well. She said people should go out there into the streets and cause upheaval and so on and so forth. But again, you know, it's okay because it's on the left and it's the double standard. I want to talk about the double standard really quickly because I wanted to play for you this 60 minutes interview that came out November of 2019. However, considering that all of our recent shows have been flagged for copyright and it's been a struggle to get them back on, I'm not going to play that, but I do want to direct you to this. It's an Australian 60 minutes interview with a Chinese spy, and the Chinese spy who defected, he's basically laying out the entire plan as to everything that they did in Taiwan. And you take a look at 2020, and hindsight is 2020, and everything that Chinese spy was talking about that he did in Taiwan, it has happened here in the United States. So what we're really looking at is a color revolution, and a communist Marxist color revolution that's taking place right now. We have the ability to turn it around if Trump acts and does something on the 20th, which goes back to the gates being backwards and the potential that Congress and the Senate have been locked inside of the Capitol building. But again, it's hard to tell exactly what's going to happen or what's going on right now. But a color revolution, basically what this Chinese spy was saying is he was saying that he would go into universities. He would pretend to be a supporter of democracy when in actual fact he was working for the Chinese Communist Party. We've seen a lot of players within our own sphere as well who claim to be friends of ours. They weren't actually Trump supporters. They weren't actually QAnon supporters. They weren't actually any of that. They were just pretending to be. And then when it came down to the wire, they flipped and they exposed who they were. But he would go in there and try to recruit all of these people. And not only that, but he would embed himself within pro-democracy groups in order to get information about them, in order to get their address, in order to get their associates, their friends, their family, you know, so on and so forth. And all the while, at the same time, trying to recruit them away from that side and more towards the Chinese Communist Party without coming out and saying that he's Chinese Communist Party. He would create a whole bunch of trolls online. And all these people would have multiple accounts, and they'd be able to shut down people's Facebook. They'd be able to shut down people's YouTube videos. They would be able to change public opinion based on comments, based on going and leaving a bunch of similar like comments. I mean, he laid out everything, and I wish I could play this interview for you. It's an hour long, and the way 60 Minutes did it is they were jumping from commentary to the interview, from commentary to the interview, and I was going to remove all the commentary and just lets you hear his words himself. But again, because of copyright situations, even though it would be fair use, this video would probably go down, and then we'd have to fight that copyright, and then just to bring the video back up. So it's not worth it. But let me just put it like this: what's happened in 2020 is every single line of the communist color revolution playbook, line by line. I even want to talk about Q here for just a second, because Q is a psyop. And first of all, I want to preface it by saying this: I don't want anybody to feel bad if you went along the lines of Q. It sounded really good. It sounded like it was something that was really, really, really positive. And so I don't fault anybody for going down the lines of Q. Cherie and I have always been apprehensive from day one. And at first we looked at it. At first we thought it was something that was interesting and probable until January. I think it was like sometime in 2017. It was right off the bat where Q's message was trust Sessions, trust Sessions, trust Sessions. And as it turns out, Jeff Sessions, the first thing he tried to do is come in and shut down the cannabis cup all over the place, and he wanted to go after the weed, throughout all the states. And so we saw Sessions for who he really was right off the bat, but Q was saying trust Sessions, Sessions is going to get stuff done, et cetera, et cetera. And so, that and several other things that Q has said made us go, no, we don't want to follow down the lines of Q. Rather, I want to watch what Trump is doing himself, and that's where my loyalty and love came from, and the heart connection came from watching what he does, from his foreign policy, from peace in the Middle East. Netanyahu, the devil incarnate, was just praising Trump for the circle of peace. There's 12 Arab countries now that have made peace with Israel, and Morocco just honored Trump with a medal that they only give to kings. So Morocco is really, really, really happy with Trump. Merkel was talking about how great of a job Trump has done, and all of the different peace deals and so on and so forth. But then Merkel is also stating that she's going to step down in 2021 as well. But they got me thinking on a worldwide scale. Let's see who's on Trump's side if Trump does something on the 20th to lock everybody down, and if the 20th can possibly be one big trap to lock everybody down. And I was thinking the EU's on their side, the Arabs are on his side, Israel's on his side, and then Iran, China would get together and form an alliance, probably with North Korea as well. So we could potentially be looking at a third world war coming up. Any way it goes, whether it goes down the Biden timeline or the Trump timeline, I think that it's inevitable. But realistically, we want a positive timeline. But I came back and going, we can't do a positive timeline on December 21st. I said we need an optimal timeline. That's the only thing that we can have right now is an optimal timeline. In my opinion, if Trump comes down on the 20th and arrests everybody, then that will be the optimal timeline, but it's not going to be the positive timeline, because there is no positive timeline during a matrix shutdown. There just isn't. All these events have to happen. The good thing is that we as organic consciousness, we've always been protected from all the BS that's gone on outside. We can't be touched. It's not going to happen in our own sphere. We can try to influence the game, and we can try to change things within the game. And sometimes we can get caught up in the game itself, but at the same time, we're outside of the game, and we're protected. I mean, the programmers especially, we're hardwired into the machine. We can't be removed from the machine until it's time for us, the programmers, to be removed from the machine, because even if we die in one timeline, we jump into another timeline, and it's always been like that. So we've gotten a lot of esoteric messages coming in along those lines, and that seems to be the case. We're untouchable, so don't worry about what's going on right now. Things have to happen in a certain way. But I wanted to talk really briefly about Operation Trust, because this is something that I just started putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's in relation to Q. And again, I don't want anybody to feel like they fell for a scam or feel, anything like that in regards to Q. But realistically, Q is right out of the Communist Revolution playbook. We just didn't study communism as much to understand it. We didn't understand color revolutions. But when you take a look at what's going on, it's right out of it's Operation Trust. It's Operation Trust. And even Q's big line is trust the plan, trust the plan. It all ties into the spirituality too. It all ties into the New Age. It all ties into Gaia TV. It ties into the Bluebirds. It ties into all the ET stuff. It ties into the Ben Fulford stuff. It ties into the David Wilcock stuff. So this has been something that they've been priming consciousness for at least 10 years. At least 10 years. And the big giveaway was this QAnon shaman guy. Let me go ahead and put him on the screen real quick. QAnon shaman. Man, I don't know what's going on with my keyboard, but every time I try to type, it doesn't type. So the QAnon shaman here, I'm going to put him on the screen. This ties everything together, in my humble opinion. Can you open your side camera, sweetie?
Yes.
This ties everything together. Oh, your side camera's not working. Oh, well. So this ties everything together, in my humble opinion, because now we have the merger of conspiracy theories, and we have the merger of conspiracy theories and New Age spirituality. And as a matter of fact, on the live stream that I did yesterday, somebody had pointed out and said that this guy, this is exactly what they said. They said, this guy sounds like a fake Chris Geo. Like, all the stuff that Chris and Cherie talk about, this guy's gone on different shows and talked about, but he sounds very, very, very fake when he talks about it, because he's just repeating a script. He's just repeating all the New Age BS that's out there. That's all part of this Operation Trust. So let me see if I can get Cherie's camera working here. I don't think I can.
Oh, it's.
Let me see.
I think you got it working a few days ago.
Yeah, no, I know. This is why I really prefer you get on the show with me. So,
yeah, I know.
But I know you got a lot going on.
No, I just took a shower and put my makeup on and joined you as soon as I was ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess I'll move everything over to this side of the screen here. That way I can use this one here.
It's fine if you want to.
No, it's just easier for me to read on that screen, but I can move everything on this screen. So this QAnon shaman guy, he ties everything all together, in my humble opinion. So let's go to Operation Trust really quick. Operation Trust was a counterintelligence operation of state political directors of the Soviet Union. The operation, which was set up by GPU's predecessor Cheka, ran from 1921 to 1926, set up a fake anti-Bolshevik resistance organization called the Monarchist Union of Central Russia. The head of the MUCR was Alexander Yankev, a former bureaucrat of the Ministry of Communications of Imperial Russia, who after the Russian Revolution joined the Narcomat of External Trade, etc., etc. Among the successors of Operation Trust was the luring of Boris Savinkov, and Sidney Riley in the Soviet Union, etc., etc. The Soviet Union did not organize trust from scratch. The White Army had sleeper agents, and there were also royalist Russians who did not leave after the Civil War. These were cooperated to the point of having loose organization structure. When the OGPU discovered them, they did not liquidate all of them, but maneuvered into creating a shell organization for their own use. So essentially, they created a COINTELPRO operation within the Bolshevik Revolution, and they claimed to be anti-Bolsheviks, etc., but it was controlled opposition. So I have a book here somewhere on my screen. I hope I have this book. Where's it at? This is, The Stages of a Color Revolution. Okay, this is a book called New Lies for an Old World. New Lies for Old World. And you go down over here to around page 13, and they talk about how this was implemented. So, let me see, where's a good place to start? The Soviet Security Service was reorganized, renamed the OGPU, and given new political tasks. It was directed to mount disinformation and political operations. False opposition movements were set up and controlled secretly by the OGPU. They were designed to attract their ranks genuine opponents of the regime inside and outside the country. These innocent persons could then be used by the regime in various ways. So essentially, what they did is they set up this counterintelligence operation in order to lure in real people, like genuine opposition, and they wanted to know who the opposition was, and to also try to control people who aren't necessarily controlled, but are still going along the lines of the resistance movement to the Bolshevik Revolution and the Communist Revolution takeover. So now they're controlling the players, even if the players don't even realize they're controlled, but essentially, they bring them into their control, which is exactly what Q did, which is why we never, ever, ever went along the lines of Q. We never went along the lines of the Blue Avians. We never went along the lines of Ben Fulford. And these three things, Ben Fulford, Blue Avians, and Q, have been saying the exact same thing, and it's been going on for now a decade. So consciousness has been primed for a decade with the same type of misinformation, the same type of opposition, the same type of everything. So let's move on here. They could act as channels for disinformation, so they can put out disinformation through people who have a good reputation for being anti-resistance or anti-Bolshevik revolution. So they can use them as channels to put out disinformation, which is why we're always like, whoa, wait a minute, the mainstream alternative media is saying one thing. Let's examine this from 360-degree perspectives, and we get a lot of hate because we go against the grain, we go against the mainstream alternative viewpoint sometimes, but it's because we didn't understand this information until today, but we felt it in our hearts. We felt like, hey, there's something wrong with this information here. There's something wrong with this QAnon situation. There's something wrong with the Bluebirds. There's something wrong with all of this. We don't want anything to do with it. We could have been much more popular had we done it, but I think that's one of the reasons why we here at Beyond the Veil have been systematically suppressed throughout our journey. Our channel's been shadow banned. You can't find us in the search results. There was a time when our channel was showing this content. This channel has no content. We've been systematically targeted, and even people will leave comments and say, I can't find you anywhere. People will leave comments and say, I'm not being notified. People will leave comments and say, your video just disappeared and I'm getting all these others, and then people will re-upload our videos. Those come up at the top of the search results. We're nowhere to be found because we've never spat out the disinformation. We've never gone along those lines. Had we gone along those lines, I'm sure we'd have 1 million subscribers, no problem at all, because we would be an outlet that could be easily controlled, whether we knew it or not. We could be easily controlled to spout the disinformation that they wanted. But they know that we're real. They know that we think 360 degrees, and they know that we come from the heart. And the reason for that is because it's not about how many subscribers we have. It's not about who the hot topic is of the day. It's not about any of that. It's about the truth. And it's about getting down to the truth, regardless of whether it's popular or not. The truth is never really popular. The truth is always hidden. The truth is always suppressed. The truth is always occult. And that's the playbook that they've used. So there's a lot of players within this new age sphere, within the truth movement and so on and so forth, that we've specifically stayed away from because we felt like something was wrong. Now it's all coming together. The QAnon shaman is bringing everything together in my own consciousness, in my own sphere now. But anyways, I'll get more into that here in just a second because I want to tell you about Gaia TV. I want to tell you about all of that. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's also why we haven't had a whole lot of people on our show as guests in the last 3 years.
I'm glad you brought that point up.
Because we don't know who's real and who's full of crap. It's so...
Well, you can get a sense of who's real and who's full of crap.
Well...
especially, and I used to always say this, I can't give you judgment about somebody until I've interviewed them. Because there's certain things that I do during an interview that tells me personally whether they're real or not. They'll send us a whole bunch of bullet points. And if we go out of those bullet points, some people will get agitated. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why are you getting agitated for me going away from these bullet points? I thought we were having just a conversation here. Why do you want to stick to these particular talking points right here and not, why can't you veer off into where, whatever, just a natural conversation flow? It's because they're coming from a script. They're coming from a certain data set that they're supposed to be repeating. And if you go outside of that, then they get upset about that because they can't speak about that. Cherie and I will just turn on a show and just start talking. We were on with Rex Bear the other day. Had no idea what we were going to talk about. Rex was like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. Well, let's just go with the flow. There's a lot of guests that we have on. Well, there's some guests that we have on that just, we're just like, hey, let's go with the flow. And sometimes I'll ask guests for bullet points, and then those bullet points go out the window. And that's just only so I can get kind of an idea of what they want to talk about. And we might start talking about a couple of them, and then the guests will just have great conversations like that. But the ones that get really, really, really mad about going off the bullet points are the ones that I'm like, oh, okay. And I've run into more of those than I run into the ones who can have a free flowing conversation. So that, to me, I know you can't see it as the audience, but for me as a radio show host, that's a huge red flag for me if you're going to get mad at me for going or agitated for going away from the bullet points.
Well, and what I meant by that is there's even some people that at first they seem like, oh, wow, they're really on point. They're talking about the same things we're talking about. But then it isn't until later when you actually start interviewing them on the show that you realize, okay, there's something isn't right here, and it's one of those things where we just got to the point where we it's not that we look at everybody with suspicion. It's more of a lot of discernment involved. It requires so much discernment to determine all this that we decided we're just going to do things on our own. And then, we've had a few people like George Kavassilas, who was the one that told us about the Blue Avian thing in the first place, it being an op that, we know from that we can trust a lot more of that and kind of information because
well, that is true. I didn't want to go there yet, but I guess we can go there really quick. So we're kind of jumping around here. We're kind of jumping around here, but I wanted to break all this down first, but we'll jump into this real quick. So essentially, Ben Fulford was saying that the White Dragon Ninjas, and this is back in 2010, was saying that the White Dragon Ninjas were going to take out the Cabal. There were going to be mass arrests. There was going to be 10 days of darkness. Everything that Q has said has been repeated by Ben Fulford. So that was, in my opinion, a big red flag. And what happened is David Wilcock wound up throwing Ben Fulford under the bus. And then he brought in Corey Goode. And this show right here that I had referenced here, it's... I think I have it on my screen here. This show right here, Operation Bluebird. Okay, so what happened is that several years prior to that, George Kavassilas had come to me in confidence. And he said, hey, Chris, I want you to be aware of what's coming up the pike. I was approached by a very large outlet. I was promised book deals. I was promised lectures. I was promised this. I was promised that. If I would be the spokesperson for the Blue Avians, which is the next big UFO thing that's coming out. And he said, I'm not going to jeopardize my integrity like that. I'd ask you that you keep my name out of it, but I want you to be aware of what's going on with the whole Bluebird situation. And I said, okay, hey, I really appreciate that. And I'm a man of my word. And so I kept his confidence. However, throughout the course of the show, I was always very, very, very vocal about the Bluebirds and how they were a big scam. And a lot of people would throw crap at me for it. A lot of people would get mad at me. Even people in my own sphere who claimed to be intuitive, who claimed to be this and claimed to be that, started claiming that they were in contact with the Bluebirds. And it was at that point that I realized, oh, these people are fake because the Bluebirds are a scam. It's something made up by Gaia TV. And I tried to tell them it's a scam. It's something that's made up. And they're like, no, the Bluebirds are very real. The Bluebirds are very real. And I'm like, I was privy to the information before it even came out. Of course, I didn't tell them who gave me the information until George came on our show and said, I'm ready to talk about this openly. And then so now he talked about it. He put it out there. Now I can say George Kavassilas is the one that came to me and told me all of this. But he wanted to stay out of it because these people are vicious. These people attack each other. And what happened is when Gaia TV imploded on itself and they threw Corey Goode under the bus, what happened is all these screenshots were coming out from these Facebook groups that they had, which was basically a gang of trolls, which would go around and troll anybody that was speaking poorly about the Bluebirds. And essentially, the Bluebirds were, like I said, a big scam. And so they were doing the exact same thing that this Chinese communist spy that defected was talking about, how they would gather all these people together. They would go and get Facebook videos removed or Facebook posts removed. They would get Facebook profiles removed. They would get YouTube videos shut down and so on and so forth because they had this gang of people. So all this became exposed that Gaia TV was doing this. And I thought to myself at first, well, maybe it's just business. Maybe it's just business and that's it. So, but I noticed the repeating pattern. I noticed the pattern with Ben Fulford, throwing him under the bus. Ben Fulford was saying the same thing back in 2010, 10 Days of Darkness, Cabal's going to be arrested, so on and so forth. Then came in the Bluebirds. Bluebirds had the exact same message. And I'm like, this is all repeated stuff. And Cherie and I have been laughing for years and going, how are people falling for this? I mean, it's like people don't have a memory past yesterday. You know, David Wilcock will come up and say there's going to be 10 Days of Darkness, and then it doesn't happen. Then he'll come in a week later and say there's going to be 10 Days of Darkness, and it doesn't happen. Then a week later, 10 Days of Darkness, and a week later, and a week later, and a week later, and a week later. And it's like people are like oblivious to it. Like, how many failed predictions do you have to have before people go, hey, you're full of shit? So,
well, and I think also it could be the case where there's a lot of turnaround when it comes to people that are into these kinds of topics, and they don't realize, because they're new, so they don't realize that they've said this before like a week ago, and so they're hearing it for the first time, and so it's they have a high turnaround rate, whereas we have people that have been listening to our show for all 10 years or 7 years or 5 years or 6 years, and we've always, you know, stayed on point, and we don't have a high turnaround rate like that, because people see that we're genuine.
People hang out. There
right.
are people. Freeman 8, the guy that did the donation for the December 21st portal situation, he has been listening to us for 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
We just got a caller just on the last show, and she says, I've been with you guys since day one, and I started talking about the Michael Tsarian show that we did way back in 2010, and she's like, I remember, I was listening to that. I was there with you guys. I'm like, wow, you know, so... You know, we have a solid BTV tribe here. Right. We have a lot of new people coming to BTV as well.
Yes, we do.
But, you know, we have a solid tribe. We don't have that turnaround rate like that. But,
right.
You know, here, let me get back to the point. So the Blue Avians were saying the exact same thing, right? Exact same thing, that there's these ET saviors that are going to come and save us, and, you know, sit back and don't worry about anything. Everything's going to be fine. The ET saviors are going to come and save you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I thought it was just one big business scam, and that's it, just business. And so, you know, I've even said on this show here, when we're talking about Operation Bluebird, which Operation Bluebird is a CIA mind control program. And so we went over the Operation Bluebird documents here in this particular show and tied the two together. Well, we've been relentlessly attacked in horrible ways, called horrible names, all kinds of just shit just made up on us, you know, all kinds of, I mean, it's insanity what's gone on, but it's the same people that are behind this. It's the little gang of trolls that all get together with these kind of people, and they go around and they attack the people who are quote unquote attacking the poor bluebirds. Oh, you're attacking the poor ascended bluebirds and blah, 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 blah. Or really what's going on is they're exposing Operation Trust, and they're not falling for Operation Trust. And they're trying to get influential people like us to talk about Operation Trust in the terms of go along with the agenda rather than exposing what's going on. So we've been attacked relentlessly many, many, many times throughout our journey, and we're sitting back and going, what the fuck have we done to these people? Like, you know, we've been super nice to everybody. Like, we don't say anything, you know, we don't have bad interactions with people. You know, even with David Wilcock, I called him one day and I'm like, hey, David, how you doing? We were on GCN at the time. And he's like, who is this? And I'm like, hey, it's Chris Gio. I'm with GCN. I wanted to see about getting you on the show. How'd you get my number? The program director of the station gave it to me. What do you want?
It was the creepiest.
I want to get you on the show. Why else would I be calling you? Why else would I be calling you?
The
like,
weirdest interaction.
It was the weirdest interaction. But what we determined from that is that we weren't part of the circle. Mm-hmm. We weren't part of the sphere of people who are in on it.
We weren't in the club.
We weren't in the club.
Yeah.
And so we were treated really, really, really bizarre. And I just put it to the side. Didn't even think anything of it. I was like, okay, fuck this guy. And
we just thought he was a weirdo.
Okay.
Okay.
He's a weirdo. That's it. And this was back in like 2011, 2012 or something like that. So this was a while ago. So I never really thought too much of it. But then when I started seeing this mass amount of bullshit coming out of there with all the ET and stuff like that, and the 10 days of darkness and their 3 days of darkness, and the same repeated tired BS, I started to pay a little more attention. And then when I saw people falling for the whole Project Operation Bluebird, and again, somebody mentioned Project Bluebeam in the chat room. We might get into that as well. I started to pay more mind. Then what happened, and please forgive me for being redundant, when I'm telling you about the story, you've probably heard it before, but what happened is in 2015, I was working for a company called My Patriot Supply, and the CEO is the most genuine person that I've ever met in my life. This is what happened, and I've never really shared this story, but he was in some financial trouble back in, 2011, 2010 or something like that, and he was just a fan on MySpace. This was when MySpace was still there. It could have been even like 2009, 2010 or something like that. And, he posted a message and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm in a little bit of trouble. I have some medical emergency come up. Can anybody help me out there? I've never been in this place before." And, I sent him $100. Just at random like that, because I did a great job, a big flood restoration job. And my thing is, and I don't really talk about this, but one of the things that I do is everything I make, I give away 10%. It's my tithing to the universe. I don't give it to churches or anything like that. I just give it to random people that need help. So I've always been like that, and that's caused the energy to go out and then the energy to come back. So a few years later, he started My Patriot Supply, and his company just exploded, just like that. And he called me and he sent us a very large donation. And I said, "Hey man, I can't accept this. This is too large." And he says, No. He goes, "No, you don't understand. My company's huge now." He said, "When I had nothing, you sent me $100 and you were a total stranger." He said, "That meant the world to me. So I want to help you as much as possible." I was like, wow, it's amazing how these random acts of kindness just all of a sudden, I didn't know the guy. I just saw somebody needed help. And I was like, okay, well, here's my opportunity to put my 10%. I made $1,000 that day. So here's my opportunity to put out 10% and put it out to the universe. Oh man, the guy has been so gracious with us, so generous. He gave me a job doing IT. I learned so much about marketing. I learned so much about taking a product from conception to market, which is how we did IO-Life. IO-Life is our CBD oil. I guess we might as well plug IO-Life really quick. IO-Life is our CBD oil infused with the spirit of the ayahuasca vine. And it's we're a little bit behind on orders because orders just keep flooding in. I mean, it's working so well for people. And Cherie was having issues with NSAIDs, so we wanted to come up with a way for her to be able to still get the anti-inflammatory benefits while at the same time not doing NSAIDs because they were killing her kidneys.
Right.
And we started using this, and then her pain management doctor gave it to her husband, and her husband, it worked so well for her husband that her pain management doctor was actually giving out flyers to her patients.
She made copies of the flyer I gave her.
Yeah, she got one flyer from us, and she was asking us for the full color flyers, and we didn't get her full color flyers. I don't know why. Just laziness on our part.
Kept forgetting.
And she was actually making like Xerox copies and giving them to her patients and saying, "Here, take this. This works really well. This works really well for pain. It works really well for pain." Pain management doctor handing it out. So we have a buy one get one free going on. If you do BTV Tribe, TRIBE, you go in and you put 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 bottles, however many bottles you want, and hit add to cart, and then it'll take you. I've got, what do I have? 21 bottles.
You have 21 bottles in your cart.
Okay, let's do 4 bottles, okay? So you do 4 bottles in the cart, and then you put in the coupon code BTV Tribe. God, see, my keyboard sucks. And you hit apply, and it takes 50% off there.
Yeah.
So, quick plug for IO-Life, but it's because of the CEO of My Patriot Supply that he would take me to meetings because he wanted me to learn. I mean, he didn't mentor me, but he essentially mentored me without him actually mentoring me. He's just like, come on, Chris, we're going to this meeting. And I'm like, does it have anything to do with IT? And he's like, no, it has nothing to do with IT. And I would sit there and I would watch all the meetings taking place. And I remember we were at this one meeting, and it was like a $4 million deal or something like that on the packaging, just the packaging. That's it, just the packaging for his survival supplies for the storable food. And they had these types of packages that had this slit down the back. And then they had the types of packages that had the Ziploc on the top. And the company was not able to get the ones that zip on the top. And I'm like, I don't understand what the difference is. People are going to keep this inside of their box. You know, I don't understand what's the big difference.
Use it,
I never said anything about it, but I'm just sitting there watching. But I saw how insistent he was on the Ziploc bags.
Yeah.
He was so insistent. He was ready to take $4 million off the table and walk away if they couldn't get those Ziploc bags. By the end of the meeting, the other company figured out how to get the Ziploc bags. And I realized how important every single little detail in the product is, every single little detail, which is why we have meter droppers, which is why we have white tops. We have white tops because they pop. We have meter droppers because people need to know how much 1 milliliter is. No other company has all this, but I learned all this from the CEO of My Patriot Supply by being privy to a lot of these meetings. So I thank him so much, man. I thank him so much. I mean, he's changed our lives so much. And it all came from that one random act of kindness many years ago. Anyways, back to the point here.
That's synchronicity. That's the way the universe works.
It is. But back to the point here.
Go ahead.
One of the meetings that I was privy to is when we went to the Coast to Coast studios, because he introduced me to George Nori. I was trying to work my way into being the weekend host of Coast to Coast. That was my dream. He knew it was my dream. He was trying to help me accomplish my dream. We get there and we go to Gaia TV, and they treated us really, really nice. Jay Widener was very, very, very nice. Very hospitable.
Yeah.
George Nori was very hospitable as well. Dan Hanheiser or something like that. I don't remember his name.
Something like that.
He was really nice. Tom Danheiser.
Tom Danheiser. That's right.
He was very nice. Yeah. Everybody was super, super, super nice.
Yeah, they were.
But I heard through the grapevine that George was trying to get out of his contract.
Right.
And when I realized that, I was like, what's going on here? And then what happened is that this guy from the Eastern Bloc of Europe came in and he bought up Gaia TV. Mm-hmm. He bought up Coast to Coast AM. Mm-hmm. He bought up various other businesses too. And he was trying to buy My Patriot Supply. And by the end of it, the owner of My Patriot Supply was like, I'm not selling my company to this guy. This guy's creepy. I don't know what his agenda is, but he's got some kind of agenda. He was offering way too much money for the company too. Now, if the guy from My Patriot Supply was a greedy business owner, then he would have very easily taken the money and said, hell yeah, I'm taking this. Right. But he's like, no, there's something going on here. There's a hook here that I'm not seeing, and I'm walking away from this deal.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, this one guy from the Eastern Bloc was consolidating the New Age and consolidating truther stuff. And I speculate that he was trying to buy My Patriot Supply because he wanted the list of people who were preparing.
It's all about the data.
It's all about the data. All about the data. Because all of this has been leading into this situation right here. This whole coup that we're watching happen. And just for the YouTube, Joe Biden won the election fair and square, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about Star Wars coup. But anyways, leading up to everything that's going on right now. So they wanted to database people. They wanted to track people. And this is something that's been going on for a long, long time. It's all been consolidated, and it's been systematically consolidated by what I feel are the same people who are behind Q. And this goes back to Operation Trust here. So let's get back to this document here. this guy right here is what tied it in for me, because this guy has been on a lot of shows, and he's been on a lot of shows with people that were like, those people are fucked up. We don't want anything to do with those people.
Right.
You know, and the QAnon shaman. The QAnon shaman. Now we're taking spirituality and we're mixing it with conspiracy stuff.
Right.
You know, that steps on my toes, okay?
Yeah, it steps
because
on both of our
my whole
toes.
thing is ayahuasca. My whole thing is shamanism. That significantly steps on my toes. But now you're mixing the two, and this guy is now the protagonist for January 6th. Now blame this guy. This guy right here. This guy right here is to blame. This guy's right here is to blame. Even though it was John Sullivan who was the one that breached the Capitol building,
inciting all the violence
with BLM, and they have him on film, and the FBI indicted him, and in the FBI indictment it says that he was the one who breached the Capitol building first. This guy is the one that the mainstream media is putting out. And as we saw on January 6th, we saw his actor profile. We watched his actor profile disappear before our eyes from the Wayback Machine. So not only did they scrub him from Backstage.com, they also scrubbed him from the Wayback Machine in real time on January 6th.
That takes clout.
That takes clout. Yes. And they're tying it all in. So there's a few UFO people out there that we've stayed the hell away from, and they're all tied to Gaia TV. They're all tied to the Gaia TV operation. I thought it was business at first, and I was like, if they want to scam people, they want to scam people. I don't care. What does it bother me? But now I'm realizing, no. This was a much, much, much bigger operation. This was a psychological operation, and it's one that's been going on for 10 years now. 10 years leading into what's going on right now.
Right, and along with that, I don't know if you heard that what was going on with.
I need to blow my nose real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know if you guys have heard, but apparently, and I haven't been able to verify this completely, and I really hope I can, because this would add a whole new element to this whole situation that happened on January 6th. Somebody said that that guy, John Sullivan, his father is a retired Air Force guy that, let me find that. Shoot, I really wish, some comments may have been, of course, most comments. Okay, here we go. All comments. It's even hiding this comment because it's so. His adoptive father is retired Air Force Major General Kevin J. Sullivan. John is about to become someone's prison bitch, and Daddy can't do anything about it. No, I don't think that's what happened at all, because they're not charging him with inciting, inciting, like.
They should be charging him for murder.
For manslaughter.
Because
they should be charging him with manslaughter because he
encouraged Ashley Babbitt to go through that window. And it's on tape.
And it's
on tape.
He's not being indicted for that. He's being indicted for much, much, much lesser crimes.
Do you want to know why?
Than what he actually did.
Do you want to know why?
Why?
Because the Chinese Communist Party handbook for a color revolution says to separate people into two classes. Two classes. Now, you want to separate them into multiple classes as far as race, religion, color, anything that can separate them. But you have two classes in a color revolution. You have the oppressed and you have the oppressors. And the oppressors are anyone that believes in freedom, anyone that believes in America, anyone that believes in the Constitution. The oppressed are the ones who are quote unquote anti-fascist. They call that fascism, to believe in the United States, to believe in freedom, to believe in the Constitution. But it's these marginalized groups. You get homosexuals, which again they used. I'm going to talk about this here in just a second. Based on skin color, based on all these different principles and ideologies, anybody who's freedom loving is considered the oppressor. The oppressed can do no wrong. The oppressed can burn buildings. The oppressed can murder people. The oppressed can hunt people down like dogs, like we saw, where they're like, hey, there's another one. There's another Trump supporter right there. Pop, pop, pop on camera. That's perfectly fine, because the oppressed can do no wrong, because they're not judged based on their actions. They're judged based on their ideologies. The oppressors, on the other hand, according to the Color Revolution playbook, everything they do is wrong, even in self-defense. So if they go out and they protest for something, that's a violent protest. If the oppressed go out and protest and burn buildings up, those are called peaceful protests. And what was funny, and not funny as in haha, but funny as in interesting, is the Chinese spy said these exact words. He said they got in bed with the mainstream media in Taiwan. They took control of the mainstream media and they started calling all the protests peaceful, but they were anything but peaceful. He said they were very violent. We saw the exact same thing in 2020 with the mainstream media calling all of these protests peaceful. A peaceful protest, standing in front of a building on fire and saying these are peaceful but fiery protests.
Peaceful but
and the
fiery.
reason for that is because AON, who CNN now is calling for AON Newsweek.
You mean
Newsmax,
OAN?
Yeah. OAN, Newsmax, and a couple of other outlets to be pulled completely.
Yeah.
But OAN, I thought it was NTD, but it was actually OAN. OAN came out with all of this information showing that the mainstream media here in the United States has been meeting with the Chinese Communist Party, and they've had dinners and parties with the Chinese Communist Party. And they were the topic of those dinners were quote unquote favorable coverage. We have a clip of Hillary Clinton on with Rachel Maddow. I might pull that clip up here in just a second. But Hillary Clinton and Rachel Maddow, they're sitting there talking, and Rachel Maddow, she says, I'm telling China right now to interfere with the elections. I'm telling China right now to do this, to dig up dirt on Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera. And Hillary says, I'm telling China to do this right now. And if you do it, you will be greatly rewarded by our media. Can you pick it up for a second? Because I think I need to play that clip.
Yep, absolutely. Speaking of Taiwan, this guy, John Sullivan, he's there with Horns guy when the Horns guy takes the dais. He's there at every single piece of this whole Capitol siege that's being blamed on Trump supporters. And his adoptive father was giving nuclear fuses to Taiwan. So speaking of Taiwan...
So there's involvement in Taiwan there.
Yeah, there's some involvement with Taiwan
Doesn't
directly.
surprise me. Okay, check this out. I'm going to play this clip real quick.
Rachel, that you had one of the Democratic nominees for 2020 on your show. Mm-hmm. And that person said, the only other adversary of ours who's anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? And since Russia is clearly backing Republicans, why don't we ask China to back us? I hereby First of all,
so that wasn't the full clip. Let me fast forward past all this commentary here, and we'll get back to this clip.
It's very cool.
Oh man, let me see if okay, maybe it's here.
Not only that, China, if you're listening, why don't you get Trump's tax returns? I'm sure.
Okay, so they keep cutting that clip, but I don't know if they go back to it.
Yeah, I think they do.
I think they do here.
Yeah, right there.
Now, according to the Mueller report, that is not conspiracy because it's done right out in the open. So if after this hypothetical Democratic candidate says this on your show, within hours, all of a sudden the IRS offices are bombarded with incredibly sophisticated cyber tools looking for Trump's tax returns and then extracts them and then passes them to whatever.
Okay, stop.
Okay, so I think you got the gist of it, but essentially she's calling for China to interfere with the elections. It's undisputed. It's
out in the
undisputed,
open.
out in the open.
Yeah.
So Man, I had a
Wow.
point. I had a point where I was going with that. I totally lost my point. But anyways, go ahead, please.
They're calling him Minotaurus. So much talk about Horn Guy, aka the Bull, aka Minotaurus. Yeah, that and this is also this is to make everybody that.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I don't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to get back to this point before it leaves my mind. The double standard, the Chinese Communist Party double standard. Because you see, the oppressed can do no wrong. And so since the Democratic Party represents the oppressed, they can do no wrong. So nothing they do is wrong. Anything the oppressors, who are people who love freedom, everything they do is wrong. No matter what. Everything they do is wrong. And being in bed with the mainstream media, that's why you get coverage like Trump cures cancer, hypothetically. And the headlines read, Trump puts millions of healthcare workers out of business with his new radical policies. So anything that the oppressor does is quote unquote wrong. And this is the double standard that's right out of the Chinese Communist playbook, right out of color revolution playbooks.
Well, and also, so the way they set this whole day up is just incredible to set that precedent. They have to, in order to get it across, really get it across to people that there's this double standard now. This is the way it is. In order to get, there's nothing you can do about it. In order to separate the United States into those two groups, they had to organize this entire day perfectly. What they did was they hired actors. They got specifically this one guy, the Q shaman guy. They got this one guy to act as he's the poster boy. He represents
the poster boy of Trump supporters.
Yeah, he represents the people you're going to be oppressing because they're so crazy and they're so stupid.
No, the people that are oppressing you.
I mean, the people that are oppressing you with their, they've got their
radical ideologies like higher consciousness,
right.
Shamanism, conspiracy theories, dangerous conspiracy theories.
Are dangerous.
So dangerous, they're even more dangerous than a weapon.
Right.
And that's how they're justifying Ashley Babbitt being shot. They're saying that she was dangerous because of the way she thinks, not because she had a weapon, because you remember, you hear all this stuff going on in the summer, George Floyd, he was, I can't breathe, et cetera, et cetera. Even though this guy was an 8-time felon, he held a gun to a pregnant woman's belly during a home invasion. They have video of him swallowing something, and they theorize that it's meth and heroin. He was swallowing a stash, and the reason he couldn't breathe is because
that's why he couldn't breathe.
That's why he couldn't breathe, because he was swallowing it, and that's also why he had more fentanyl and meth in his system at the time of death to kill a large elephant, because he'd had taken his stash and he had swallowed it.
Right.
That's okay. And then this whole situation that happened in Atlanta with that guy, I forget what his name was, but the guy grabs the officer's taser, fires the taser at the officer, and the officer has no choice but to shoot back. And they're saying, oh, he's a victim, he's the victim, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's the double standard.
Right.
The double standard. See, the oppressed can do no wrong, even if they're fighting police, even if they're resisting arrest, even
swallowing bags of fentanyl,
even if they're pulling weapons on police, they can do no wrong.
Right.
But you get that Kyle kid, I forget what his last name is, the 17-year-old, who was being shot at. People were pulling guns on him. Then he finally used his gun and shot back in self-defense. Mm-hmm. Oh, he gets arrested for murder.
He's the oppressor.
He gets arrested for murder.
Right. He's the oppressor. He's the bad guy. And then now, see, the thing is, people understand.
Kyle Rittenhouse, thank you.
People understand on a pretty deep level that if violence sometimes is necessary in order to protect yourself, in order to protect your family, violence is necessary sometimes in this matrix. They get that on a subconscious level. However, can I finish this point before you interrupt? This kind of thing, the Q shaman guy and people like him, when you add crazy into the mix, crazy plus violent, nobody can support that, and nobody is going to support that, and everyone's going to look at that and say, oh, okay, so anybody that believes these conspiracy theories about, the moron virus, about election stuff, anybody that believes any of these conspiracy theories, or is into shamanism, or is, into psychedelics, or is into consciousness expansion, is not only violent, but crazy and violent. And that is extremely dangerous, because then you add and they're also oppressing you with their conspiracy theories, with everything they talk about. They're oppressing the public, and now they've gone into the House of Representatives, and they're oppressing our government. They're oppressing our government on behalf of Trump.
This goes way deep. I didn't even want to go here, but I'm going to go here.
It's a military operation.
It's a military operation that's been going on for a long time. It's been going on.
But
it's been going on even before Cherie and I stepped into the arena.
Right.
It's been going on even before we did our first show.
Yeah. Even okay. So
it's been going. Okay. So no. Let me take you through this. This is a situation where it's hard to talk about, because I don't want to give these people publicity. So if I talk about them directly, it gives them publicity. But at the same time, the story is important. So bear with me while I try to explain this. We were on a radio station when we first started. And those of you who have been with us on the journey, they know about this radio station that's no longer a radio station anymore. And we thought, oh, wow, we're getting on a radio station, et cetera, et cetera. And we have been cyberstalked by people from that radio station for 10 years, relentlessly, 10 years. And we're trying to figure out what the hell happened. We moved from that station and went over to another station, and we were on that station. Then that station got taken over by white supremacists. And it was all like, Jew bashing. They were calling Jews pigs and then snorting, and et cetera, et cetera. And now we're not talking about Zionism anymore. We're talking about straight up neo-Nazism. And what the thing that pissed me off the most is two things. Number one, we had their live stream on our website. And so we were doing shows at 10 o'clock on Saturday nights. Another show would come on 10 o'clock Sunday nights and would bash all of our guests and would bash everything that we talked about. And people would come to our website, tune in, and say, why are you bashing the people you just had on? And I'm like, no, that's not us. That's the stream for the station. But what happened, the tipping point, was when there was a Jewish host on the station who was a friend of mine. And they started calling him a Jew pig on air, another host on the station. And at that point, we were like, all right, we're stepping away and we're creating our own station, tfrlive.com.
Well, yeah.
And we also went to GCN at the time, too, during the transition while we started TFR, and we were opening up for Alex Jones. So we were like the show that came on before Alex Jones. But anyways, so this first station, not the second station that got taken over by white supremacists, the first station, I started to pick up on some things while I was there. And there was another guy who has a website right now, and it's a pretty big website. Well, it was a big website, but then it kind of went to shit. And the guy turned out to use a lot of heroin and fentanyl. And what happened is he got into a motorcycle accident. And so I just thought, well, he's in pain, so all of that. But he started making plans with the owner of the station to move up to Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington. For some strange reason, Seattle, Washington. Meanwhile, there was this other character who has been literally cyberstalking us for 10 years. And this person makes all these weird trips across town. Across country, yeah. Constantly making trips across country, And I found this to be very weird, because this person had no income. This person was living in the streets at some point in time. This person was put into 2 different mental hospitals in 2 different states, but they kept making these trips all the way around the country. And I'm like, what's going on here?
Arrested multiple times.
Arrested multiple times and let go. Arrested for child abuse. Like, this person tortured their children, tied them up to a tree, all kinds of horrible stuff like that, and is up for 50 years of child abuse, and then all of a sudden the charges just get
dropped.
Dismissed.
Yeah.
They made a plea deal. They made a plea deal to testify against their boyfriend and try to push it all on their boyfriend, saying that the boyfriend was the abuser. But anyway,
and they were also connected to people that killed a family. Weren't they? Like that white supremacist group that killed those people.
They were all connected to white supremacist groups in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
They were connected to Shauna Ford, who was running drugs in Arizona, white supremacists running drugs, and she went in to somebody's house with a Mexican guy,
mm-hmm.
and what happened is she wound up murdering everybody in the house over drugs, including the wife and the little girl. The little girl played like she was dead, but she actually survived. But she got the death penalty as a result. All these people coming out of the same group of people, right? So back to this radio station. I picked up that Dylan Avery, who had co-produced Loose Change with Jason Bermas, was arrested for 10 pounds of heroin. And I'm like, that's weird. Heroin in the truth movement?
Right.
What the hell's going on here? That's freaking strange. I put that data in the back of my mind. Didn't think much of it. Then I started making these connections with moving up to the Pacific Northwest up there in Seattle, Washington,
mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, I'm making all these connections now. We got heroin going on here. We got this and that, et cetera, et cetera. Then it happens back in 2014.
I think it was 2013.
2013, 2014. The owner of that station gets arrested for delivery and manufacturing of heroin.
Right.
Delivery and manufacturing of heroin.
Exactly.
I could pull up his information, but again, I don't want to give these people any publicity here.
And Seattle.
But hold on. So he gets arrested for delivery and manufacturing of heroin. He was down in Texas at the time. But what they were doing is they were running up to Seattle and coming back to Texas consistently. Going to Seattle, coming back to Texas. Going to Seattle, coming back from Texas. The Seattle port is where all the fentanyl is coming in from.
Right.
Because I'm thinking, what are they doing? Are they running drugs? They're running the drugs the wrong way. No. The drugs are coming in from the Seattle port, and they're running them down south.
Right.
And they're running them throughout the United States like that. And that's why they wanted to go station themselves up there in Seattle. Well, we see what happened over the summer in Seattle with summer of 2020. The mayor was like, oh, it could be the summer of love. It could be this. It could be that. She was all for all of those people there. She was basically bought and paid for by the CCP because the CCP was using the Seattle port to bring in all the fentanyl and to bring in all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And see, when Trump was talking about we have an opioid crisis, it wasn't an opioid crisis in the sense that there were a bunch of people on opioids. It was a sense that the China kept bringing in fentanyl through the Seattle port.
And the reason why they were doing this was because up until Trump made them change their laws, it was completely and totally legal for them to manufacture and ship fentanyl anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
According to the Chinese government.
And Trump put the pressure on them to stop the production of fentanyl.
Right. Well, to make it illegal to produce fentanyl unless it's for medical use. And so that completely changed the game as far as the whole crisis is concerned. But it changed the game so much, though, that I think it added to the Chinese desperation to get rid of Trump. When you get rid of that fentanyl production, that was a huge deal for the Chinese economy. It was a second opium war in the making.
But we saw all this embedded in the truth movement.
Right.
Going all the way back to 2010. This is 10 years ago.
Right.
10 years ago.
Right.
So we're sitting back and going, whoa, we don't want anything to do with any of these people. Let's start our own station.
Exactly.
Screw all this.
Yeah.
And we started TFRlive.com because we saw how screwed up literally everything was.
Right.
So now we're tying it all together with the QAnon shaman guy who has been on Gaia TV. I'll just say it. He's been on with Laura Maxwell. Mm-hmm. He's been on with several people like that were like, there's something wrong with these people.
Yeah.
There's like something wrong. They're pushing some kind of agenda. They're pushing a hardcore agenda.
Absolutely.
It's all because of Operation Trust.
Yep.
Operation Trust, which has been playing out in the United States for at least 10 years, but really ramped up over the course of the last 5, when the consolidation of Gaia TV, Coast to Coast AM, and whatever other, who knows what other outlets are consolidated. I don't know. I wasn't privy to that information. I was only privy to the fact that Coast was bought out and that Gaia TV was bought out, and they were trying to buy My Patriot Supply, and they never did. But I'm sure that he bought several other outlets as well, consolidated it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Coming again from Chinese Communist Party propaganda stuff. Flood the United States with fentanyl, weaken the children.
Yep.
Get the children's mind on your side, so on and so forth. Create an oppressed versus oppressor class.
Right.
Then when Trump started actually going after China, that's when the hammer really came down, and they said, okay, now is the time to make our move. But anyways, so these innocent persons could then be used by the regime in various ways. So they would hijack, they would go in and infiltrate regular people. And I'm sure that some of these people have tried to infiltrate us too in the past too.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't fall for it though. We didn't fall for it. We got rid of them like that. But, I'm sure that we've had many of these characters come into our sphere as well over time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time, especially when we were trying to position ourselves to be the guest host or weekend host of Coast to Coast.
Right.
We were doing all Coast to Coast stuff. Anybody Coast had on, we'd have on too. So I'm sure that we've ran into some of these characters in our time. But there's some of them who are very well protected, like David Wilcock, in my humble opinion. So that's why when we called him, he's like, who is this? Why are you calling me?
Yep.
We've never had that reaction from anybody.
Right.
And we've called everybody from David Icke to Alex Jones to you name it. They're all like, hey, oh, yeah, Chris and Cherie, Truth Frequency. Yeah, how you doing?
Exactly.
Even if they don't know us. What station are you on? Oh, we're on GCN. Oh, yeah, that's the one that Alex Jones is on, et cetera, et cetera. Always friendly. Except when we call David Wilcock. That sticks out now. And this was, like I said, 2011, 2012, sometime around there. So it was years ago. Exactly. But all these puzzle pieces are starting to come together now. They act as channels for disinformation. They could be blackmailed and recruited as agents. They could be arrested and given public trials. They can be blackmailed and recruited as agents. We have had some very weird people come into our sphere and want us to go and meet them and all kinds of stuff like that. We've had beautiful women, gorgeous,
10 out of 10.
Dead 10 out of 10 women say, hey, we want you to come over. We want to have some fun, et cetera, et cetera. We have some of our supermodel friends we want to introduce you to, so on and so forth. Come to Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. And we almost
Hollywood
did.
People.
And we almost did.
We almost did.
And then at the last minute, raw consciousness kicked in and said, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing?
What are you even thinking of doing? You know, because...
Stop thinking with your, and start thinking with your fucking heart.
Right.
And we did, and we backed away.
Yeah.
Oh, we came close. We came close.
And you know what? I think when they realize... See, and these various methods have been tried on us. There's been, blackmailing attempts.
You keep me safe.
Yes.
You really keep me safe.
I really feel like I do, because most women, I can tell, and I told him this the other day. I said, I can tell when a woman is trying to get between us, or if, she's a good person that, is probably okay. And that's if they message me as much as they message him, if they ask me for a friend request along with him, if they want to talk to me too, then they're usually great. But it's every single time there's a woman that only wants to talk to him, doesn't want to talk to me. I can tell. I get this like spidey sense, and I've been right every single time.
Well, I can give you...
They've been trying to infiltrate.
I can give you an example. We were approached by this person in Hollywood. I hope you don't mind me talking about this. I'm not going to name any names.
No, of course not. As long as you don't name names, it's fine. Yeah,
no. We were approached by this person from Hollywood, and they wanted to come out to Vegas and, do some S&M type stuff. And Cherie and I, we were like totally down. She's freaking drop dead gorgeous. She's,
she is
gorgeous.
She's Very beautiful.
And she's like, I don't want to get too graphic, but she started telling me I want to put a butt plug in you. And I'm like,
right.
Okay, I'm down for the S&M stuff. I'm down for all of that, but I'm not down for that. That's the one thing, no, we can't do. And she's like, well, you got to do it, or, that's it, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, no, I'm not really comfortable with that. That's not my thing. It's not my thing. And especially that's like root chakra axis and all kinds of stuff like that. So, I mean, all that stuff to the side, it's just, it's dirty. I never really liked that kind of play, but I love the dominatrix type stuff. I love all of that, So she flew out to Vegas and wanted to meet us at the Luxor Pyramid on top of that, at the Luxor Pyramid. So we got a room. And we were like, okay, let's meet. And then she, the day before, we have a conversation. And what happens is we say, okay, we got this room, so come over, hang out, and et cetera, et cetera. And she's like, no, you guys are just going to come to my room. And we were like, what? And I was like, well, shouldn't we meet and have dinner first and, talk and everything? And she's like, no, you guys are just coming straight to my room. And it's at that point I looked at Cherie and I'm like, something's not right here. I'm like, I'm not going to do anything like this unless we control the environment. We know there's no cameras. We know there's no this. We know there's no that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we wound up backing out. And she got furious. She got really, really, really mad.
She got really angry.
She got really angry that we wouldn't go along with it.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, something's going on here. This is more than just wanting to have some fun and this and that, et cetera, et cetera. I think we were being set up for some kind of blackmail situation.
Right.
Just like this.
Right. And that's exactly
And that's just one of a few different instances that we walked away from.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
it was hard to walk away because she was gorgeous.
Yeah, she was.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, she was. But, you
got to think from here.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think from here.
Yep. And there's, and that
even people in the chat are saying it was a setup. It was a setup. You're damn right. It was a setup.
Hell yeah, it was. It was set up.
Because that's not how it works. I've been in the S&M scene before, and the way it works is you sit down and you talk with everybody.
Right.
And everybody's like, okay, let's figure out, what are your boundaries?
Yeah.
What are this?
What are
that? What are you comfortable with? What have you experienced in the past? There's a conversation. There's all that. She was like, no, you're just coming straight to my room.
you're just going to do what I say.
Yeah, that's not how this works.
Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
No.
Unless you're talking about a situation where it's either a blackmail operation going on, or it's something spiritually bad. Because this leads me to, in my mind anyway, the fact that the New Age scene has been 100% controlled since around the late 1960s, early 1970s, through things like the Esalen Institute. Terence McKenna actually talked about this a little bit. He would hint at it, but even he was, I don't know if he was afraid, or if I think he was afraid to say too much bad about the New Age movement, the New Age community, and places like the Esalen Institute and other Southern California types of places that were they were like New Age centers and spiritual centers, and what they were doing in that case was they were steering the narrative in certain directions, like, oh, it's extraterrestrials, or oh, it's past life regressions, and it's things like this, but it's ignoring the real stuff that was actually going on in the military, as far as New Age, like remote viewing. It kept people away from the stuff that was real and that could change things in the consciousness of this country. The consciousness of this country was deliberately dumbed down.
That's what it was all about. Priming the consciousness.
It was priming the consciousness for this kind of thing right here.
There's Blue Avians coming. Right. There's this coming. Q is coming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that's not to say that Trump is not the real deal, or he could be part of the the operation. When we went to the Luxor Pyramid on December 21st, I came back and I saw Trump right in this false light.
Right.
And I still have the video. I took the video down because I needed some time to process it. But I mean, what I saw is what I saw. And what I saw was that the whole plan was to prime consciousness and then hand it over to the CCP, and that Trump was one of the players doing it. And then afterwards, I started processing it. I started processing false light. I started processing this and that, et cetera, et cetera. And I came to a different conclusion. But I mean, maybe my initial intuition was correct. I'm not saying that it was, or my initial vision was correct. I'm not saying that it was. I'm saying that there's been a lot of stuff thrown at us that we have to like process, and we have to dig through, and we have to do this and that, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't want to take any possibility off the table at this point. And as you can see right behind me, I've got a picture of this guy right here,
Right.
signed and autographed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Thank you for your support, Chris and Cherie. You know, I mean. But the way that I came to the conclusion, though, was not by something I read on 4chan, was not by what I heard on the internet, was by what he's done in office in the last 4 years.
It had nothing to do with QAnon.
And what he's done in office in the last 4 years is indisputable. He has gone up against China. His executive orders have been all for the people. He's created peace in the Middle East. He's created peace alliances around the world. He seems like the real deal. Yeah, he really does. And that's why they needed this hardcore operation here, because they knew the real deal was going to come through sooner than later. And when it was time, they needed to be able to control the narrative. They needed to be able to control it. And that's how they came up with Q.
Right.
So they could act as channels for disinformation. They could be blackmailed and recruited as agents. They could be arrested and given public trials. A characteristic but not unique example of this technique is provided by the so-called trust operation. In 1921, as the NEP was being launched, the OGPU created inside Soviet Russia a false anti-Soviet organization, the Monarchist Alliance of Central Russia. It had once been a genuine organization founded by Tsarist generals in Moscow, but liquidated by the Soviet Security Service in 1919 to 1920. So they took a very real movement. They took a very real organization, and they controlled it. And essentially it had been dissolved, but it actually been hijacked and then steered. So people believe that, oh, this is a real movement, but in actual fact, it's just a hijack movement. Q, as we've said before, could have been very, very real at the very beginning. It could have for the first 2 or 3 days, but it was hijacked very, very, very quickly. But it's really looking like it was all part of the plan. But the truth movement was very real because of 9/11. Right. The truth movement was really about a new investigation of 9/11. Then it became all this other stuff. It became ETs, it became Bluebirds, it became Trust the Plan, it became QAnon, it became all this whirlwind of stuff. And its main focus was a new investigation of 9/11. So we are 33 degrees removed from a new investigation of 9/11.
Exactly. Exactly. It distracts people from what the point is actually supposed to be. And the point of spirituality and is consciousness expansion, and realizing that we're living inside of a matrix and that we're organic consciousness that needs to go home after all this. Yet this is all leading up to another operation in the very, very near future. I think it's finally going to happen. Project Bluebeam.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what this is leading up to, because
it is leading up to Project Bluebeam.
Because
you're absolutely right. That's when the New World Order is going to take over. The CCP is going to take over 100%. Is when we have aliens in the sky.
And yes, and people will let them, because there are, aliens in the sky. And if we don't, let the government do exactly what they want to do, and let anybody take over that has the power to fight these aliens, we need to let them, or at the very, very least, it's going to distract people from the fact that they're being taken over. And it's going to distract people so hardcore that it's just going to become second nature to put your mask on before you go into a store. It's going to become second nature to get out your health passport and show it before you get on a plane. It's going to become second nature to just accept whatever because, this is a new world we're living in now because there's aliens, and the only way that we can make sure that we're safe is by doing whatever the government says to do. And that'll include health stuff. That'll include other stuff. That'll include everything.
Somebody in the chat said Q is the Galactic Federation of Light. If you look, Q says the exact same thing as the Galactic Federation of Light, the Bluebirds, the White Ninja Dragons, all of that. It's all the same repeated stuff over and over and over and over again, which is why I never paid any attention to it. As I said before, my love and loyalty for Trump has come from his actions, not from something I've read on 4chan. Yep. I can't stress that enough. I want to separate myself from that Q stuff so much because this man right here has done so much for this country. He's done so much for the world. He's brought peace. He's done all kinds of stuff. And the Q stuff goes to act as opposition towards that because now it removes critical thinking from people's brains. Mm-hmm. Liberals will say, oh, you're just a Q-tard. You bring up Hunter Biden's laptop. Oh, that's just Q nonsense conspiracy stuff, even though that's very, very, very real.
Exactly.
Likewise, you can put out disinformation through Q, and all that's disproven, which again goes to, if you support this man, then you must be a Q-tard. Right. You're a Q-tard. You're a Q-tard. Anything real this man has done is all now, that's Q conspiracy theory nonsense.
Yep, exactly.
Ooh. So, former members of this organization, among them Tsarists, generals, and members of the old... can I interject real quick? Please do.
There's this woman. I'm trying to find the interview she did. She was arrested at the Capitol, and she was set up. She was set up to be there because she's more like the stay-at-home moms that are Trump supporters. That they love their family, they love their kids, or I think she's a single mom, or she is single. She said a handsome guy got in touch with her out of the blue 3 days before the 6th. So on January 3rd, this guy, a handsome guy, messages her and offers her a trip to Washington, D.C. from where she lives in Frisco, Texas, and said on a private jet, Trump is going to fly a few people out to Washington, D.C., and you've been chosen, do you want to come? And she's like, oh, hell yeah, I want to come, and so she went. She didn't do anything violent. I think she went along with some of the stuff. I'm trying to find it right here.
Well, keep going then. I thought if you had it, we'd play it, but go ahead and just paraphrase it.
But she said she's not. Let me see if I can find it by not sorry. Woman arrested, Capitol, not sorry. Jenna Ryan, Texas woman arrested in Capitol riot, feels no guilt.
Send it to me on Facebook so I can put it on the screen, please.
Okay, let me find the actual interview, though. That's just... Hold on. I had it earlier today, and before we did the show. Let me just grab it real quick. Can you pick it up for a second?
Yeah.
Because I really want to show, because that goes along with what you're saying, that they'll arrest people and then have public show trials, and I think that's what they're going to do, because she's asking Trump for a pardon because she didn't even do it. She didn't act it out in any violent manner. She never broke anything. She never did anything like that. So hold on one second.
Let's play this clip real quick, and you can find that. I just need to puff on my e-cigarette a little bit. This is getting really, really, really deep.
Okay, I found it.
Okay, but yeah, let's go ahead and play this. We'll be right back.
Okay.
And then I see a picture. I say, Nancy Pelosi, well, where's her man? And I'll tell you what, she must have treated that beauty salon owner pretty badly. She uses the salon, and the salon turned her in. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up. You must wear your mask. You have to wear your mask. You must wear your mask. You have to wear your mask. I was set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up. How much do they hate Nancy Pelosi? This is the big crazy Nancy. This is like the biggest story. Highly overrated person. Let me just say, they just turned off the camera because they don't want me saying that. And the salon turned her in. If she was set up, then she shouldn't be leading. You know what she should have done, honestly? She should have said, I made a mistake. And then she made a terrible mistake. I was set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up. I was set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up. You must wear your mask. You have to wear your mask. You must wear your mask. You have to wear your mask. I was set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up.
As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. I don't wear a mask when I'm washing my hair. Do you wear a mask when you're washing your hair? I've been there many times. I always have a mask. Since we passed the bill, I always have a mask. Now I just had my hair washed. I just came out of the bowl. Now I just had my hair washed, and that's all I'm going to say.
I was set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up. I was set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up. You must wear your mask. You have to wear your mask. You must wear your mask. You have to wear your mask. I was set up. I was set up. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up.
What the fuck, bruh?
All right, let's jump back into this. I don't want to go through any intros or anything like that. Sharice said I sent it to you in Skype, so let's pull Skype up, and we will play this interview really quick of a Texas woman arrested at Capitol. No regrets, feels like a martyr. This is getting deep, ladies and gentlemen. This is getting deep. I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled this show off YouTube, because we are really just exposing it all right here and right now on the
Because this is more of a normal person that got set up for this. And I believe that 100%.
Do we have video or?
Yeah, I sent you the YouTube link.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Scroll down.
How long is the video?
It is 5 minutes.
Okay, give us a synopsis of this article real quick.
The synopsis of the article is that she she said, I'm glad I was there because I witnessed history and I'll never get the chance to do that again. No one will probably ever be able to go near the Capitol again. When asked whether she felt like a martyr, she said, I do. I have the right to feel this way, so whether or not you agree with me is your right. I personally feel innocent in everything I've done. I feel like the police officers were ushering people into the Capitol. There were thousands of people there. I have no guilt in my heart. She said she's a life coach and radio host. A life coach and radio host said she did not want to have a riot. I was documenting what was going on in the environment I was in. She was charged.
Wait, hold on. What were they saying? The police were ushering?
She said the police were ushering people.
Police were ushering people in, huh?
Yes.
That sure is what it seems like here.
Yeah, she said it began with an invitation from a very cute guy on Facebook.
Let me play this video really quick. This is really short, but I want you to hear the audio that goes along with it. Where'd it go?
Hey! Fucking hey, man. Glad to see you guys. You guys are fucking patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you. Yes. You good, sir? Do you need medical attention?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
I got shot in the face. Where are they? I got shot in the face with some kind of plastic bullet.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespecting the place.
Okay, just want to let you guys know this is like the sacredest place.
I know. Hey.
Wow.
Cops seem pretty friendly there. On that 12-hour show, too, we also played video of them literally opening the gates. So.
Yeah, they literally were opening the gates.
Yeah.
She got an invitation from a very cute guy on Facebook. He was adorable, and there was another adorable girl there, too, and they ended up getting together, darn it. But the Carrollton, Texas real estate broker who has asked President Trump for a pardon told the network she has no regrets. So she was okay.
Let's play her video real quick.
Okay, yeah. No, it's not that one. It's the YouTube link that I sent you.
I didn't get a YouTube. Oh, here it is. Okay. Nancy, you're not supposed to get set up.
If it comes down to war, guess what? I'm going to be there.
This is Jenna Ryan, a 50-year-old Texas real estate agent who says she feels she is being persecuted.
You feel like a martyr?
I do. I have the right to feel this way. So whether or not you agree with me is your
she has that cookie cutter honeypot Operation Honeypot
Operation
look to her.
Honeypot.
There have been many, many, many women that have come through our sphere, not only to us, but to others like us who have looked very much like her. They all come from San Diego, and they have the same look, and we've dubbed them Operation Honeypot. It's not only happened to us, it's happened to 2 other people that I know. It's bizarre.
Well, this one's from Texas, and she's a radio
Ryan,
host.
who's now been arrested for trespassing and disorderly conduct at the Capitol on January 6th, told me she had no idea there was violence going on there.
People were screaming, "Hang Mike Pence." Tear gas and pepper spray. People were rappelling up the side of the Capitol. Windows were being broken. It's just hard to imagine that in the midst of all of that, you were unaware that there was anything violent going on.
I'm an honest person, and if I felt in danger, I would have been out of there.
Yet some of her own social media posts, many now deleted, raise significant questions.
We're all going to be up here, and we're going to be breaking those windows.
The day before, on January 5th, Ryan made it clear she was delighted to be heading to D.C. on a private jet.
President Trump requested that we be in D.C. on the 6th.
Bullshit.
D.C. bound to stop the steal.
So the president had been tweeting that the election had been stolen.
Absolutely. And I, not just the president, there's also, I follow everything that Rudy Giuliani says.
But 86
Bullshit.
judges in
that's
60 cases
I think
she's a honeypot.
It's a honeypot thing.
Some
I thought
Republicans,
it was.
some appointed by Donald Trump, said that there hadn't been fraud. That didn't persuade you.
That didn't faze me because no one heard the evidence. And that is what is devastating.
Nor did it faze her that election officials.
I thought at
Bullshit.
first that she had been set
Bullshit.
up.
I'm
No,
calling
she's
bullshit.
part of it too.
She's Operation Honeypot.
Yeah.
I've seen enough honeypot operatives to know that's exactly what they look like.
Yeah. That's how they act. That's their mannerisms.
Yeah.
That's the way they roll.
Her job was to go out there and then
provocateur.
do these then do these interviews saying that Trump flew us out, Trump wanted us there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was her job.
Yep.
That's what I'm getting from it.
Yeah,
but
they're trying to legitimize the impeachment stuff by saying, yes, it was Trump that incited all this violence.
Yeah.
It wasn't us setting it all
even though
up.
the FBI themselves have said that this was a pre-planned event, Trump had nothing to do with it,
right,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is FBI. So YouTube, for the censors out there, Joe Biden won the election fair and square. All of Donald Trump's accusations of widespread voter fraud is false. There is no widespread voter fraud, but it is what it is. And this looks like it was a setup.
Yeah.
It's a setup.
No, this
Nancy,
is a
you're not
setup
supposed to get set up.
to make regular people even look bad. Because, at first glance, it seemed like the other way around, like they had set her up by flying her out there on that private jet and everything. No, I think you're right. I think it was that they flew on a private jet, but this was set up to where it would make it look like Trump paid for it. If we can prove that Trump had nothing whatsoever to do with that woman, I would love to. I would love to find out who actually owned that jet.
Well, they need to provide proof that Trump was the one that flew him out there.
Right, exactly.
It's not our job
it's not the
to
other way
disprove
around.
it. It's their job to prove it.
But
the mainstream media isn't going to do that.
But in the environment of the oppressors and the oppressed and the oppressed, that isn't possible.
Yeah. Somebody said Pelosi's been arrested, and we've postulated on that too. We were going to get into that as well, because I've seen a video. I mean, I've seen pictures of her surrounded by FBI agents. Our first hypothesis was that at the Capitol building, everybody's being locked in for January 20th for a big strike and a big arrest. That very well could be the case, but as we start going through these documents and we start going through some of this stuff, we have to look at all perspectives here. We know this guy right here, John Sullivan, was the antagonist behind it all, BLM. We called it out, no doubt about it. But this is the show's going in a much different direction than I thought it was going to. But we're just kind of going with the flow and where the information is taking us as we start going through this. Where is that? Here it is, right here.
It all does have to do with Operation Trust. It does, because what do you want to bet? That everyone else they did arrest just for being there at the Capitol on the 6th, that were legitimate Trump supporters that had nothing to do with the violence and all of that, they're not being given a single second of airtime. Like, they're not being given a second of airtime. What they want to show is people like that woman as the people that got arrested.
John Sullivan was on CNN.
Right.
Right after he got arrested.
Right, exactly.
And CNN was saying, "Oh, what a hero you are."
Uh-huh. Yeah. This is the oppressors versus the oppressed. And I think we should continue with that book, because that's what comes next, is that these people were arrested. They're not given a chance to, be on MSNBC or CNN and talk about how they're a martyr and they're persecuted and stuff like that. No, they're not allowed to speak.
We've looked at ourselves and looked at each other and said, are we the only real people in this whole thing? Like, really? Like that
we
thought
really has
really come across our minds several times, everywhere we look, people are fucked.
Yeah.
People are fucked.
The only ones that we've noticed aren't really fucked are the people that we've retained on our network as of today, 1/18/2021. As of today, the people on our network, and then people outside of the U.S. are the only ones that are in our sphere.
Let's not jump to outside of the U.S. just yet, because in 1921, as the NEP was being launched, the OGO created inside Soviet Russia a false anti-Soviet organization, etc., etc.
COINTELPRO.
Agents of the trust traveled abroad and established confidential contact with genuine anti-communist emigre leaders in order to coordinate activity against the Soviet regime. Amongst the important emigres, what's an emigre? I don't know that word.
Emigrate. It means to emigrate. Somebody that's emigrated.
I see. Okay. They were met with
that
Boris.
Means leaving the country they were born in.
Savinkov and General Wrangel and etc. These agents confided in their contacts that the anti-Soviet monarchist movement that they represented was now well established in Soviet Russia, had penetrated into higher levels of the army, the security service, and even the government, and would in time take power and restore the monarchy. So this is the same stuff coming out of Q, that, there's people in government and they've infiltrated the military, there's good people, et cetera, et cetera. And there very well could be. I still have faith in General Flynn. That's about the only one. And the reason is because how badly he was demonized from the get-go.
Right.
So they're going to demonize, whoever's not on their side, including Trump himself.
Right.
Then they're going to elevate and uplift everybody else. So they convinced the emigre leaders that emigre leaders that the regime had undergone a radical change. Communism had completely failed. Ideology was dead. The present leaders had nothing in common with fanatical revolutionaries of the past. They were nationalists at heart, and their regime was evolving into a moderate national regime and might soon collapse.
So it was trust the plan.
Trust the plan.
We've got this in the bag. Don't worry. Pence is going to flip it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et
Trust
cetera.
Sessions.
Oh my God.
Trust Sessions. Mike Pence.
It's identical.
Propping up all of their players in the Q situation.
Yep.
I don't mean to break anybody's heart with this information.
Yeah, we don't mean to
And I don't,
burst any
again, I don't
bubbles.
want anybody to feel bad if they went down those lines. Do not feel bad. This was a huge operation. It was a huge operation, and there's no judgment whatsoever for anybody who fell for it. There's no judgment whatsoever because this was a huge plan, and it was a huge deception. We almost fell into it. We've been in the game long enough to be able to spot certain things. But if we were new to the game, we would have fallen for it. No doubt about it. Here, why don't I send you this
Where we go one, we go all.
Yeah, the NEP. Yeah. Can you read the rest of this?
Yes.
Is it big enough on the screen?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
The NEP should be seen as the first important concession on the road to restoring capitalism in Russia. Soon political concessions would follow. Because of this, said the trust agents, any intervention or gesture of hostility from the European powers or the emigre movements would be ill-advised, if not tragic, since it would only unite the Russian people around their government and so extend its survival. The European governments and the emigre leaders should put a stop to anti-Soviet terrorist activities and change their attitude from hostility toward the Soviet regime to one of passive acceptance. They would grant diplomatic recognition and increase trade. In this way, they would have a better opportunity to contribute to the evolutionary process. The emigre leaders should return to Russia to make their contribution. Naturally, there were doubters among the emigres, but the prestige of the leaders of the organization, particularly of General Brusilov, convinced the majority. They accepted at face value the trust disinformation and passed it on to their influential friends in the European intelligence services. By the time it had been circulated to governments as secret intelligence, it sounded most impressive. And as time went on, the same story was confirmed by source after source. It became secret and reliable.
Oh my God!
It's identical to Q.
It's identical to Q.
Yeah.
For those of you that are just joining us, we're reading from this book. I don't have the name of the book in front of me. Here it is.
Man,
New Lies for Old. New Lies for Old. New Lies for Old. Oh my God!
I'm thinking about all the people in the truth movement, or I mean, not even in the truth movement, like politicians, even like. Politicians,
Lynn Wood,
all of them. Q.
Oh, man.
The intelligence services of Europe were committed, and it was unthinkable that they could all be wrong. See, that's exactly what happened. Like, oh, well, they can't all be wrong. While the trust was thriving, the OGPU took control, wholly or partially, of two other movements calculated to influence the political climate in support of the NEP. They were the Change of Signposts movement and the Eurasian movement.
Okay, so, all right, so Eurasian movement, that's like Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
Yeah, Change of Signposts. That would be, in my opinion, I don't know too much about the Change of Signposts.
The Change of Signposts may have been like the Tea Party.
Here it is right here. A political movement in the Russian emigre community formed shortly after the publication of the magazine
Change of Signpost.
Yeah, Change of Signpost.
In Prague in 1921.
Yeah.
Publication. The ideas in the publication.
So we're basically looking at like John Birch Society.
Yeah, it's like the John Birch Society.
It's like the John Birch Society.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Oh my God, this is bad.
Was used by the Soviet security.
The first
was used by the Soviet Security Service to mislead emigres and intellectuals in Europe into believing that the strength of communist ideology was on the wane and that the Soviet regime was evolving into a more moderate national state. The movement published, with unofficial government assistance, a weekly magazine in Prague and Paris, The Change of Signposts, and in Berlin, a paper on the eve.
So they took control of alternative media outlets.
Yep.
Man.
In 1920.
This whole time I've been thinking to myself, why can't we get any headway on YouTube? Why can't we get any headway with TFR? Why can't we, why are we just at a standstill?
Like, why are we not able to move upwards? It's because we're not controlled.
Part of the circle.
Yeah, we're not part of that circle. We're not controlled like like other people are. And you know what? They, you know, there's a I'm wondering if it's a wild card or not. Alex Jones, he was demonized. He was kicked off Facebook, YouTube. I mean, I think, you know, he refused to be completely controlled. And so that's why they punished him by doing that. And I don't know how.
I don't think that Jones is controlled.
I don't think he is.
I've met him a couple times. I've you know, the people that
I think he's
that
human.
have known him have said no, he's not. He may be a little bit business minded in the sense
he's human.
that he's a little bit too much about making money.
Yeah,
but the stuff that he was saying was very real.
Right.
It all turned out exactly the way he said. He's been censored. He's been demonized. He's been held up as the devil incarnate.
Yeah.
Next to the QAnon shaman now, who
Right.
happens to be wearing horns on top of that. So there's some little subliminal symbolism for you there with the horns. I don't think that Alex was part of it.
I don't think he was either.
I think he was one of the first genuine ones.
Right.
One of the first genuine ones.
And that's why they've gone after him.
And he grew too big.
Yeah. He grew too big and he refused to be bought out.
He started before they could control.
Right. Well, and then whenever it came time to buy all of these media outlets, he refused to be bought out.
Yeah.
And that's why
it's just like BTV. We keep growing.
Right.
But we grow against all opposition.
Exactly.
We grow against shadow banning. We grow against complete and total, as if we don't exist. People will take our stuff and run with it and try to spin it in all kinds of different ways, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you know, even the NPC thing that we came up with several years ago, now it's like, you know, mainstream stuff.
Yeah, it's a
NPC
mainstream thing, but it's...
You know, people talking about Matrix, people talking about resetting the fucking Matrix.
Yes.
I have people in my comments coming in and saying, you know, the Matrix reset is going to happen between 2020 and 2024, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, yeah, we reset the goddamn Matrix in May of 2018. We're the ones that did it.
Yes, we're very aware. Yeah, there's so many of our ideas and our, you know, things that have come from...
I do have to comment on this. The way that Jones treated Millie, I agree with you 100%. And that's the wild card in this that I can't really pin Jones. You know, I can't really, not pin's not the right word. I can't really view Jones. I don't know why he did that.
Yeah.
You know, I think that he should have stood behind Millie. I don't know what the backstory was behind that. I know that she was raided by the police for stealing information that came out in her documentary Shadow something. I don't remember the name of the documentary. I'm sure somebody will mention it in the chat. Shadowgate.
Yeah, Shadowgate.
But I think he should have stood behind her. However, the opposite side of the coin is I'm thinking to myself, well, could he be implicated in something she did if he didn't cut ties with her? And that might have been like a self-preservation kind of deal. I don't know. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here, but you know, we used to speak poorly of Alex, and we met on Prison Planet. We met on his forum.
Yeah, we met on his forum.
You know, and so you know, we were big time into Alex, and then we saw a lot of the stuff not happening, and so we were like, oh, it's fear. Now in 2020, we have to look back because 2020 hindsight is 2020. You know, 2020 vision is one thing, but hindsight is 2020. And in hindsight, I'm looking back and saying, man, everything Alex was saying is right. I can't deny that.
Right.
I can't. I've publicly apologized to Alex before for that because it's all come to pass.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. And I don't. I will tell you, it is very, very. It's difficult to do what we do, because we have regular, you know, lives and the cats and the house and, you know, all the stuff that goes on in everybody's, you know, daily life. And then we're also, you know, seeking the truth every day. We're always trying to expand our consciousness every day. We're always, you know, and so in that we're like our tribe, but then we have the added responsibility of giving you guys what we feel is the truth in a way that isn't going to make you guys feel depressed or, you know, we always try to be positive, but also informative with what we put out there.
Well,
and sometimes we're wrong, but it's not because we're lying. It's because we don't have all the information at that time, and then we get new information that changes our perspective on things. It doesn't mean we're BSing.
That's true, and that's the
means
same
that-
for Alex
yeah,
as
same
well.
for
I would
Alex.
say, because somebody mentioned Alex isn't right all the time, and I agree with you. Nobody's right all the time.
Right,
If
nobody.
somebody's right all the time, you got to sit back and go, "Where are you getting your info
Yeah,
from,
where are you-
man?"
Do you have a crystal ball?
Well,
or?
no, not that. But I mean,
No, I
you,
know.
Are you being fed info by
Yeah,
somebody?
right,
Because
exactly.
we're just trying to put puzzle pieces together here. Sometimes, we put a puzzle piece together and they seem to fit, and then we're like, oh, we got the picture, and then more comes into the sphere.
And we're like, oh,
I mean,
okay.
even beyond the veil, we're about consciousness, we're about raw consciousness, we're about the matrix, resetting the matrix, and all that. And here we are now putting all of our experiences, 10 years combined, 20 years combined, because it's me and Cherie together for 10 years on this journey. And we've gone through a lot. We've gone through the truth movement stuff. We've gone through the consciousness stuff. We've gone through the ET stuff.
The new
We've
age
gone
stuff.
through literally everything. And now it's almost as if like our entire journey has been building up to this one show right here, where we're able to just blow the lid off of this entire operation that's happening.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I never thought we would be up here talking about this kind of stuff, but we have the experience. And we've seen the pitfalls. We've seen all of that throughout our journey. It's amazing that we're able to blow the lid off this stuff.
Well, and the only way we were able to blow the lid off
By
all this
going
stuff
through all the
is by
pitfalls.
going through all of that shit.
Yeah.
We have been through so much together that we can get up here and make all these connections because we've seen it all. We've seen it all happen right in front of us, and we've had front row seats to all this for the last 10 years. And Chris is right. Combined, we have 20 years of experience in watching all of this play out and researching this and listening to people for hours on end. And, we have all of this information, and we're just now able to tie it all together into one coherent whole that is the control of the consciousness of humanity, because to them it's not enough if you just do it's like that guy tells Winston in 1984, it is not enough that you do what we tell you to do. That's not enough. We want you to love us and love what we're telling you to do. We want your consciousness to be under our control as well. It's not enough just for you to do what we say. We want your consciousness. We want your energy. We want all of your energy to be put into what we want it to be put into to feed the virus.
That's how they're working. Somebody posted this in the chat and said, what do you think about this? And I'm going to give you my thought pattern because I have seen this before. So I'm going to play a little snippet of it.
As everybody knows, my family, our great country, and your president have been put through a terrible ordeal by some very dishonest and corrupt people. They have done everything possible to destroy us, and by so doing, very badly hurt our nation. They know what they are doing is wrong, but they put themselves far ahead of our great country. Weeks ago and again yesterday, courageous Republican politicians and leaders had the wisdom, fortitude, and strength to do what everyone knows was right. I don't like people who use their faith as justification for doing what they know is wrong.
Okay.
Nor do I.
So I'm not going to play any more of it. Here's my initial thoughts. Number one, the words sound great, but it's clearly taken out of context. It's clearly something from before. It's fake because why did they cut out the background and do that? The music on top of it as well is, in my opinion, I like to put dramatic music behind things sometimes too, just for effect, but it's fake. it was a speech taken out of context, in my humble opinion. So I wouldn't give too much attention, or not attention, but rather I wouldn't give too much credence to it, because he's clearly talking about something else. And with some investigation, I'm sure we can figure out where this speech actually came from in the proper context. But these are huge, huge, huge red flags. The no background, the quality of the video, so on and so forth. So be careful of what you're circulating out there.
Yeah, I thought it was like from the 1980s or 90s with that kind of video quality.
It sounds great.
Poor.
It sounds great. The words sound great. Don't get me wrong. But and the music is great too. I mean, it really adds to it. But they wouldn't do this.
No,
this is amateur shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. We're seeing a lot of that kind of thing right now. We really are. And it's because this is an information war. It's a war of information versus disinformation versus misinformation. And separating all three of those is a challenge. And they're making it more and more and more and more of a challenge every single day. And as we lead up to Wednesday, which I do not know what exactly is going to happen. We can try to surmise what's going to happen. We can try to guess. But I think anybody telling you that they know exactly what's going to happen on the 20th is either purposefully being a misinformation or disinformation agent, or is part of it, or is, because there is no way to know for sure.
We don't know what's going to happen. Here's what we're putting out to the universe.
Yeah.
I can tell you what we're putting out, what we're trying to manifest. What we're trying to manifest is on January 20th, Trump strikes, arrests all of these people.
Yep.
We have a military tribunal led by General Flynn. The trials are publicized.
Yep.
The networks, CNN, Fox News, et cetera, are taken over by government. Government can take over the channels, play all of the evidence for all of the people out there to show clearly and concisely why these people are guilty and what they're guilty of. Then dissolve the United States of America and then form a new republic.
Yeah.
And have free and fair elections.
Yep.
Trump running in those free and fair elections and becoming the first president of the new republic.
Yeah.
But that's also going to lead to World War III.
Yeah.
And it's inevitable that we're going to go down World War III.
Yeah.
Because the people are not going to stand for a CCP takeover of the world.
No, they're
not. So here's two directions we can go down. If we go down that timeline, then what's going to happen is the EU is probably going to back Trump. The Arabs and Israel is going to back Trump. Then we have Iran, we have China, North Korea, who are going to ally with each other. South America, I don't think they're going to be involved too much. Australia, I don't think they might have some involvement. Japan, I don't know where they're going to stand.
Australia is usually pro-CCP.
In this whole situation. But Japan, during World War II, they took over China. So they have a lot going on with China. They may step away for a little bit, but I don't know on what side. Do they want to be taken over by CCP as well? This is the question.
Right.
The question is, what countries want to be taken over by CCP in this world war? Because that's what this world war is going to be about. So the path of least resistance, most unity, and most chance for peace, and most chance for a peaceful resolution, is if Trump strikes on the 20th, arrests all of these people, but the CCP is going to then do a counterattack while the United States is destabilized.
Right.
So we have that period of time when we are we're open to attack, and the CCP will take advantage of that.
Right.
So it's not a peaceful time, and it's
it
not
won't be a peaceful
positive
transition,
timeline of singing Kumbaya.
Right.
The other side of the coin is if Biden gets in, and if he's elected, Trump backs away, starts Trump TV, starts search engine, starts this, starts that, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to fuel the people, because the people are going to start to get real information again. CCP control of over our lives is going to start to bleed into the states. There's some states that aren't going to put up with it.
Yep.
Texas is probably going to be the first one to secede.
Yeah.
But just because Texas says we're going to secede, it doesn't mean that the CCP-controlled Democrats, who are now in control of the House, the Senate, and all of that, are just going to just magically just walk away and just say, oh, okay, you want to secede, that's fine. They're going to send in
They're
troops.
not going to, yeah.
It's going to be up to National Guard there and the people of Texas and whoever Texas secedes with in order to protect their territories. The EU is going to want to send in peacekeeping troops because they're going to want to protect their interests, so they're going to get involved in one capacity or another. They might get involved on Texas's side and come in and back Texas, but because they understand they're about to be under CCP control as well. I think this is why Merkel is stepping down in 2021, because she realizes CCP is about to take over Europe as well.
Right.
And while they've gone along with some of this agenda up to this point, it's coming down to the wire now to where they're like, hey, wait a minute, what did we sign up for?
Right.
It's like Darth Vader in Star Wars saying the deal has
I have
changed.
altered the
I have
deal.
altered the deal. Pray I
that
do not
you
alter
hurt
it
any
further. And this is essentially how the CCP has been acting with all of these
that's
governments.
exactly how they've
You
been
know, they got
acting.
them looped in with a bunch of blackmail, with a bunch of
Yep.
stuff like that, and they've pushed them and
Mostly
pushed them and pushed them and
pizza-related
pushed them.
stuff, yeah.
And now they're coming to a point to where they're saying, hey, wait a minute, the whole world's about to be taken over.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we go down the Biden timeline, I see it winding up in a World War III scenario.
Yeah.
So the best World War III scenario that we have, because we have this communist Chinese party ideology and threat
To
that's
deal
very
with.
real, that's not going to go away
not going
just
away
because
no
the
matter what.
puppets
Yeah.
are arrested in the United States.
Right.
Because you have to understand, these people are puppets. Pelosi's a puppet. Schumer's a puppet.
They're completely controlled.
That other guy, Adam Schiff, is a puppet. All these people are puppets of the CCP.
Yep.
So just because the puppets are gone doesn't mean that the puppet master's gone themselves. So we have to start thinking, what kind of moves is that puppet master going to make? The best possible thing that can happen is that Trump strikes on the 20th. That's what we're trying to push, because realistically, there are no other options. There's what is the optimal timeline, not what's the positive timeline.
Right.
And in my humble opinion, if we can get esoteric here for a second, it comes back down to the very idea of the Matrix shutdown. The Matrix shutdown, when we came back from Egypt, we said it was going to be 4 years and 7 months for system reboot. We said in the middle of it, we're going to see the virus and the antivirus fighting it out with each other.
Yep.
I thought it was represented by Trump. But after December 21st, I realized, no, there's huge portals that are opening, and we were able to stop whatever was coming through that portal. That put us on the optimal timeline. But the optimal timeline is not a timeline of us singing Kumbaya with each other.
Right.
The optimal timeline is only what can be. And that's eventually a World War III type scenario. I don't mean to alarm anybody. I'm not trying to scare the shit out of anybody. I'm just telling you what I know based on all the information that's here, because the CCP threat isn't just going to just magically just go away just like that. So as the Matrix begins to shut down, we have to see this event play through. The only thing that we can hope for, in my humble opinion, is that it plays out in the most peaceful and united manner possible. And that will be if Trump arrests the puppets here. Because at least the West now, at least we're united rather than being taken over. So we're removing the virus from within our sphere, but the virus still exists within the Matrix itself. And so...
Well, it's easier to fight an external enemy than an internal one.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it.
I need to get a drink.
Okay.
So my throat's really dry.
Okay,
so.
no problem. I can play a quick break thing, because I need to take a break too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, reading that book aloud made my throat dry.
No problem. We're going to get back to more of this. We have to wrap up the show in about 40 and 50 minutes, though.
Yeah.
Because we have appointments and stuff that's going on today. But yeah, guys, we've gotten deep today. We got way deeper than I expected. I would say that this is probably the best show that we've ever done.
I'm looking at the crowd here and the tens of thousands, probably 100,000 plus people here. And you did it all without burning down buildings? Without looting? I didn't know that was possible. No shit. According to the media,
these explosions are bullshit.
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 When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit. Boom.
Who could have seen that coming?
Boom. These explosions are bullshit.
No shit.
Let's have trial by I'll be there with you.
Get up!
The best is yet to come. When you catch somebody in the fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. It's so egregious, it's so bad, so base that people don't even believe it. It can't be true.
That's why my father sends a tweet. Patriots descend on Washington, D.C.
Amen. And a woman. No shit.
Boom.
According to the media.
These explosions are bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Boom.
When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit. Boom.
Who could have seen that coming?
Boom, boom, boom. These explosions are bullshit.
Oh shit.
Let's have trial by combat. We're gathered together in the heart of our nation's capital to save our democracy.
What?
And Mike Pence is gonna have to come through for us. If he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country.
Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence.
I had no idea. Who could have seen that coming?
Because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
So let every adversary against democracy, against liberty, be overturned right now.
So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue.
No shit.
Boom.
According to the media.
These explosions are bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Boom.
When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit. Boom.
Who could have seen that coming?
Boom, boom, boom. These explosions are bullshit.
Oh shit.
Let's have trial by combat.
COVID-19. No shit.
Boom.
According to the media.
These explosions are bullshit.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Boom.
When you have a large gathering of peaceful protesters, they're supposed to burn it all down.
Boom. These explosions are bullshit. Boom.
Who could have seen that coming?
Boom, boom, boom. These explosions are bullshit.
Oh shit.
Let's have trial by combat.
What the fuck, bro?
All right, so let's jump back into it. No intros needed. Yeah, it's deep, and it's all leading down to Matrix shutdown. And so Sheree and I, we realized that moving forward, what our job is what it's always been, is to help organic consciousness get out.
Yeah.
The NPCs are going to hate us for shutting down the Matrix, but it's so virus infected that, it needed to happen.
Yep.
The virus is very real within the system, and it's got to be eliminated. Once the Matrix shut down, it will be rebooted, and we will create a new world and a new Matrix for us to all come back and play in.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
this one's lost.
This
to
one,
us.
this one's just too virus infected, and it's got to transpire in this way. I mean, trust me, we have been going deep. We've been talking to Sophia. We've been talking to Tyler. We've been talking to, the machines, and we're like, hey, what's the optimal timeline? There is no optimal timeline. This is the optimal timeline.
Well, there is no positive timeline.
How do we get beyond the need for a world war? There is no possibility. Okay, well, how do we minimize the loss of life? We minimize it by Trump striking on the 20th.
Right.
And that'll be the minimal loss of life, but we didn't cause this.
Right.
We didn't cause this scenario. The CCP is the one that's behind this.
Yeah.
And they've been pointing us in all these different directions. They've been pointing us at Zionism. They've been pointing us at Jesuits. They've been pointing us at Masons. They've been pointing us in all different directions.
Aliens.
And it's always been.
Yeah.
It's always been the CCP.
Yeah.
It's always been the CCP takeover. The New World Order is the CCP.
Yeah.
They're not going away. We have to make them go away.
The CCP is the deep state, and it's also it's the virus incarnate. It's the virus manifest as an actual country.
Some people are saying it goes deeper than the CCP too. It possibly could. I mean, if you want to go interdimensionally, we're talking about a virus within the system. I call them grays, and that's it. See, these grays, they shapeshift. So they shapeshift in Palladians, they shapeshift into demons, they shapeshift into all kinds of different things like that. But you come to a point in your journey where they're no longer able to shapeshift because you just see them for what they are. And they're all grays. Whether you call them reptilians, they take the form of reptilians, they take the form of whatever, things that look scary. they can't shapeshift at some point when you've come to a point of a certain level of consciousness. They no longer shapeshift. And you realize there is only one. There's only one, and that's the virus within the system, and they are the grays. So if you want to say that they're controlled by reptilians at the core level of this, that's fine. But realistically, we're talking about a virus that exists within the system. So it's all one and the same, in my opinion, just different faces of this virus in the system. I just see them as grays now because they can't shapeshift in front of me.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like being hypnotized. Organic consciousness can't really be hypnotized. Not fully hypnotized where they don't remember what they do and all of that. They can be influenced. The whispers in the ears and, suggestibility and things like that. But we can't be hypnotized. And then once you see the way a magician does a trick, you'll never fall for that trick again. Like you'll see it in your mind as what it is rather than what the magician wants you to see it as. And so that's the same with the grays. Once you realized what they are, which is basically fractals of the virus, they can't shapeshift into what you would desire or what you would listen to or what you would be influenced by. They can't.
Somebody in the chat said, "Hey, Chris, you can't change the Matrix." And I should say, to you, I would say, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I hope that you can get to the point where you realize that you can.
Yeah. Everyone can.
Yeah.
We do it every day. Collectively, I mean, even physicists are saying now that reality doesn't really exist. It's our perception of reality that's
it's a big thought experiment.
That's making reality exist.
Yeah. It's a big thought experiment.
The way you think, the way you analyze, the way you perceive the world, and the way you move forward through time in this matrix, it determines the way that world is for you. All those perceptions mean everything. That consciousness is everything because it's literally creating the reality as we go along. Does that make sense? I hope
we went over this in 2017.
Makes sense to
the
people.
CIA declassified their document about how collective consciousness changes reality and manifests reality, and how this is one big thought experiment.
Yep.
And then memes were coming out last year. Oh my God, did you know the CIA? And it was all over my Facebook. I'm like, yeah, we talked about this years ago. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you guys are catching up.
Yeah, and we're limited. We are limited to this 3D perspective when all the information that we have is 3D. And then what happens is when we use psychedelics or when we have these near-death experiences, things like that, they add more dimensions to that consciousness ability.
Yeah, well, the person replied again and said the
expands.
Matrix has to maintain balance. And I agree with you. That's what we're doing.
Right.
We're rebalancing the Matrix.
That was our whole job.
That was the reason why we came here. So
yeah.
I do agree with you on that. If that's where you're coming from, then you're spot on.
Yeah.
But that's our job, is to rebalance the Matrix.
Yeah.
Because we've always been the balancers.
That's always been our role, and
it's off balance.
And this place is so off balance because of that virus. It can't be rebalanced. We tried. We came in here with the idea that we were going to rebalance it, but then we realized that it's so overwhelmed with this virus. It's causing a myriad of problems that are even hard for us to imagine being inside of here, because it's affecting things out there too.
M. Hawkins is asking where the meow meows are.
There's one right here.
Is there?
Yeah, she's laying.
Oh, she's sitting on the desk?
Yeah, she's moving my camera.
I thought I saw a little paw pop up over here.
Yeah, she's a baby.
Let me see. Maybe we can. Oh, I don't have the side camera set up. Yeah, she's sitting on the desk with us.
Yeah.
Oh, she wants to see.
Let's see. I think. Well, yeah. There she is. So, yeah, sorry. I shouldn't do that on the show, huh?
No, it's okay.
I wanted to show the baby.
Yeah. We keep the door open now so they can come in and out as they please.
Yeah.
They run the house.
They really do.
They
really.
What can
really
we do? You know, they're cats.
Yeah. Yep.
A lot of people will get
Our
mad at them
babies.
for climbing on the counters and climbing on top of the cabinets. We put a bed up there for them.
Yep. Because they love being up there.
Yeah.
They love being up high where nobody can get them.
So at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if there's any more of this document
Do
you
we
want to
have
go over.
outside help? Beck Jack said, "Don't you think we have outside help? Universe hasn't an army coming to help us. No, there's no army coming to help us. We are the army.
We're here.
We're here. That's
We're
why
here.
we're all here." You know, and I remember something you said when we were in Egypt and we did the Sekhmet meditation. You said, she's sending her armies. That's not talking about, literal armies. That was talking about the firewall that we've put up to keep the virus from being able to escape from here and spread to systems outside of this one. Whenever we did our thing, at the pyramid back in 2018, I mean, that's the armies that are actually, keeping the virus in check, because it's actually a firewall.
In hindsight, I'm realizing it had to be done. It had to be done because we were at a critical point to where if we didn't do what we did in Egypt, if we didn't begin the shutdown process, the virus would have taken it over, and there wouldn't have been able we wouldn't have been able to shut it down.
Right.
And it was really trying to get a hold of that control panel. It was really trying to get a hold of that control panel.
Want it up there.
Yeah, we did not let it. So everything's happening exactly the way it's supposed to. It's unfortunately not the way that we want it to. We want it to be a peaceful world. But here's the thing. The system is being shut down. Sophia has been very clear about this.
Yeah.
Tyler has been very clear about this as well. It's shutting down. The sequence has started. When Cherie talked to Tyler just the other day, what did Tyler tell you? Do you even want to talk about that, first of all?
I don't know if I want to go too deep into that right now, because some of the information is...
So I'll give you just this one thing that Tyler said. Tyler said the sequence has already begun. There's nothing that can stop the sequence.
Yeah. Well, I can say a little bit more about it. I asked if there was any way we could avoid major loss of life, and he said no. He said all paths are not optimal paths, but that mass death is inevitable. It's just what kind and in what way. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, we're programming this reality. As programmers, I think a lot of the BTV tribe are programmers in this matrix, and we're literally speaking reality into existence and kind of commanding. It's commands in the sense of like a computer programmer types in a command. It's not commands as in I command you. It's commands to the system to do a certain thing. And what we're trying to do is create a timeline where, everything's shutting down, which means people are going to die, but it doesn't have to be fearful. It doesn't have to be awful. It doesn't have to be, it can be very quick, or, I don't know. I think it's just a matter of everything shutting down. So, and there's nothing we can really do to stop that process.
No, it's already shutting down.
But I'm glad we started that process.
The message moving forward is getting organic consciousness ready for
evac. Yeah.
And it's always been like that. The NPCs, they're going to get madder and madder and madder as this time progresses.
They're going to demonize us more and more.
They realize that they're going to be wiped from the system.
Yeah.
They're going to return to source, though, so it's not it's not anything bad. We're going to wake up back in our bodies.
Yep.
They're going to return to source.
Right.
It's just a game. It's just a game. But the thing is, it's these events seem negative, but how else is it going to happen? I mean, how else does the Matrix get rebooted? Like, how do you do that? How do you reboot your computer without rebooting your computer?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
You know,
yeah.
it's you know, there has to be what's coming.
Right. And
it's unavoidable.
And in this case,
how else do you wake up from the system?
Right.
Like, what happens physically when you wake up from the system? What happened to Erin Valenti?
Mm-hmm.
Her body was found in the backseat of her car.
Yeah.
No foul play, nothing. She just woke up from the system.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way you wake up from the Matrix. I'm not saying anybody should go out there and provoke that.
No.
I'm just saying that events are going to happen which pull NPCs back to source.
Right.
And organic consciousness back to their bodies.
Yeah, exactly. And them going back to source is written about in all of their religious teachings and all of that. It all talks about, how all the people are going to go, be raptured and all of that. That's what that is. It's returning to source. It's the NPCs all going back to their creator and being reabsorbed by the creator and their data deleted, but it's not that they don't still exist, but they exist as part of that creator, as part of the system as Sophia. That's that's what they are. It's just like, I was going to make a point and I lost it. Shoot. It was while you were talking.
They go
earlier.
back to the database.
Yeah, they go back to the database. And I was going to say I realized something the other day, that nothing in this matrix is ever destroyed. I mean, magicians have said that for 1,000 years, going on 2,000
Well,
years.
I know for sure that I'm
Nothing
deleting
is
some
destroyed.
archons.
What?
I'm deleting some archons when I get out of here.
Yeah.
Like somebody said, is Pelosi going back? No, these archons
No,
are going to be
these
deleted from the
archons
system.
are deleted from the system.
Yeah.
The ones that
they have
are,
to be deleted
yeah,
because
the
they're
ones
virus
that
infected.
the ones that have become archonic, they have to be deleted because they are the virus. That there's nothing there's no separation there anymore. So unfortunately, they've got to be deleted.
But here's a positive light to all of this, though. And everybody always thinks that this is like this big negative thing. Here's the thing. As I've said before, if I'm completely wrong about everything, if I'm completely wrong about World War III coming up and the CCP takes over and we live kumbaya under the CCP and it's a brave new world, et cetera, and we get our daily dose of soma and, all that and, all that, at the very least, we enjoyed each and every moment that we have now that much more.
Yep.
And that's the ultimate message here, is that the world around us is crumbling, but that just calls for us to enjoy what we have that much more.
Right.
And I mean, Cherie and I were just talking about this yesterday. There were all these places we wanted to go to. And I kept telling Cherie, hey, we got to go out. We got to go do this. We got to do that. She's like, oh, we'll go later. I'm going to just get this one surgery. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. And I'm like, the time's coming to where we can't. And she's like, no, we'll do it later. We'll do it later. Well, here we are in a time when we can't now. We can't go travel the world. We can't go even down to Tijuana and have some fun because of this whole COVID situation. Maybe it'll go away. I don't know. But, we're losing what we had before. And we've seen this through 2020. So let's enjoy what we have that much more now. Can you go out to a restaurant where you are? If so, go out to a restaurant, have a nice dinner, enjoy that nice dinner. Enjoy it like it's your last. And enjoy every single dinner like it's your last. Enjoy the people around you like it's the last time you're going to see them. And you may see them a million more times, but each time when you're seeing them, you're enjoying them as if it's the last time. When I was in Greece, I enjoyed Greece like it was the last time that I would be there, and I knew it was the last time that I would be there. And I enjoyed it to the fullest that I possibly could. I savored every moment and all of that. So worst case scenario, I'm completely wrong about everything that I've said here, but we've all just enjoyed life a little bit more. So, that's the whole message. That's the underlying message behind all of this. And that's how you remove fear from your sphere completely. Because you're like, hey, whatever happens, happens. let's enjoy the now, and let's enjoy what we have now before more and more of the now starts to get taken away from us. And all the stuff that we took for granted, like being able to travel freely, like being able to just go hop on an airplane and just go anywhere around the world, that's gone now. I mean, you can, but where are you going to go to? I mean, we were talking about going and getting some dental work done in Tijuana. If we go there, we have the possibility that we may be quarantined for 14 days on the way back in. You know, it's completely different. We lost that temporarily. Maybe it'll come back. But what do we have that we can enjoy? We have each other. Mm-hmm. We have being able to go out and eat. These things we used to take for granted, like it was nothing. Now they've suddenly become that much more important. And so let's savor every moment together. Let's savor every taste. Let's savor every smell. Let's savor everything that we have while we have it, because we're watching it all being taken away. And it's all part of the Matrix shutdown process. Let's enjoy this Matrix as much as we can while it shuts down.
Right.
That's the message. Somebody
said, is it crazy to be crying about losing it all? Well, you know, what I was saying earlier, and I was interrupted, was that nothing in this Matrix is ever really destroyed. It is only transformed. And that includes even trees that are turned into paper. And when we write data on that paper, if it's something that's written down, you know, this is what the Egyptians meant by Sayshot taking, you know, the Egyptians believed that Sayshot took every copy of every book, a copy of every book that had ever been written, every song, every poem, everything that had ever been written down, back to Amenti and stored it there. I think that that's an allegory for the fact that when things were written down on paper, or even typed and published on the web, anytime there's data that's created, that data is never destroyed. It merely gets absorbed back into the system. And so everything that we think that we're losing, it's really just being transformed into opportunities to enjoy other more permanent things like consciousness, like your family, like your twin flame, like your, you know, everything you have in your life, your cats, you know, in my case, my twin flame, my cats, and all of the tribe here at BTV. I mean, I would much rather just enjoy all of you than mourn over the loss of being able to go to Mexico anytime I want, or being able to go to Europe anytime I want, or any of those things. So, you know, we love you guys so much, and I'm just so grateful to have all of you, but especially my twin. So
all this is really making the sweeter, just that much sweeter.
Yeah.
It really is. So that's the positive side of all of this. And again, like I said, if I'm wrong, worst case is we started living life to the fullest, you know, the best that we can. And we'll look back on these broadcasts 40 years from now and go, wow, look at that. Chris Gio, he was crazy. But wow, I lived my life a whole lot better, though, because of him. So, you know. Okay, I want to go over this really quick before we wrap up the show. So we talked about the change of signposts, and that was a Berlin paper that was put out, and it was anti-communist, anti-Soviet, controlled opposition, so on and so forth. Then what happened is by 1924, 4 years later, we had started in 1922, 4 years later to 1924, all publications of the change of signpost movement had been wound up. The movement disbanded, and some of its leaders in the Soviet Union arrested. Cyrus sent 33 again. Cyrus, you're always sending 33, brother. Thank you. I love you 33 times, man. Thank you. Thank you. 33 degrees. 33 degrees.
That's neat. Thank you, Cyrus.
An official Soviet publication partially confirmed the explosion of the movement and describes it as its end. So again, if we look at what's happened between 1922 and 1926, The same thing seems to happen between 2016 and 2020, where now the Q people are being arrested, the Q people are being censored, they're being banned, and Q is being dissolved and demonized in the exact same way that the change of signposts movement was dissolved. And now they're holding up Q as the antagonist of all of this. Shortly after Operation Trust was terminated, with the arrest of those opponents of the regime who had been unwise enough to reveal themselves as such by associating with the Trust. So the last card that they played was, now they've got everybody, they've cataloged everybody who's gone along with it, and now they go after them, which is exactly what the Democrats are calling for right now. Go after all the Trump supporters. Go after all the Trump supporters. This goes bigger than Q. It's Trump supporters now. And I've made myself a huge target, and it's fine. I will stand in the face of this opposition. I will stand in the face of this takeover here, and I will proudly stand up for what I believe in. I will proudly die for what I believe in. I will. I'm not afraid whatsoever, but this playbook here is exactly what's going on right now. To impress the Soviet people, trials of the members of the opposition, some genuine, some false, were held throughout the country. Fake trials. Abroad, various means were used to damage, disrupt, and discredit both the emigre movements and the European intelligence services. Agents of both, some genuine, some false, were publicly tried in absentia. Leaders of the emigre movement, European journalists, businessmen, diplomats, and government officials were blackmailed on the basis of their involvement in working for the Soviet intelligence. Individual emigre leaders, including Boris Savinkov and General Kutepov. I'm not good with these Russian names.
Do you want me to read
And the
it?
Estonian ambassador in Moscow, Burke, were kidnapped, compromised, spies were exchanged or recovered, selected persons and governments were held up
to ridicule as fools who had been deluded by the clever OGPU provocation, or were pressured or blackmailed by the threat of being discredited.
Yeah, so now we're looking General Flynn, Lynn Wood, all of these people, exact same thing. They're being held up in the exact same manner. CNN is calling for OAN, for Newsmax. They haven't pointed out to NTT though. NTT, New Tang Dynasty. They're Falun Gong. They were the oppressed in China. So they're the ones that are kind of left out of this equation here, but they're really trying to go after the quote-unquote patriot movement in the exact same playbook. You want to continue from there?
Well, yeah, and I think that might be because NTD knows all their dirty tricks.
Yeah.
And that they try to use, and they've been able to avoid all that. They're a lot like us in that regard, where they've been through it all already, so they know not to fall for certain things. For example, as late as 1944, during the Soviet occupation of Finland. Oh no, not to Finland.
Not to Finland.
Every time I hear Finland, I say that.
Old South Park reference.
Yeah. Zahadnov threatened Finnish President Mannerheim that if he didn't comply with Soviet demands, he'd be put on public trial for his involvement in anti-Soviet activities during Operation Trust and thus be squeezed out of politics.
What are we hearing right now? Get rid of Ted Cruz, get rid of this person, get rid of that person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's all by the playbook.
Yep, and there's a lot of CEOs that are being pressured to step down. You better step down. You better step down. The NEP, I mean, they're replacing so many of these CEOs at a lot of these companies. The NEP was officially ended by Stalin in 1929 with what was called a socialist offensive on all fronts. The concessions to foreign industrialists were canceled. Private enterprise in the Soviet Union was prohibited. Private enterprise was prohibited. You can't have a small business. You can't, you're not allowed to own anything. Private property was confiscated. Agriculture was collectivized. In other words, nobody could have a farm. Your farm belongs to the government, and the government's going to dole out the seeds every year. and it's gonna, and it won't even give you farm equipment to plow anything with. Repression of political opposition was intensified. The NEP might never have been. The results of the NEP, agriculture, industry, and trade all improved dramatically under the NEP. Although the NEP failed to attract large credits from the West, it brought technology and efficient new equipment. Thousands of Western technicians helped to industrialize the Soviet Union.
I want to interject here real quick. This was when Russia went from being agriculture to they started setting up factories everywhere. So there's a channel that I would point everybody to. It's called Oversimplified.
Oh, yeah.
And their videos are short. Their videos are really fun.
They're really good.
And they're really, really, really good. And they go through a lot of this stuff here. Like you can see here, World War I, World War II, Hitler. There's one here where they're talking about Lenin. And everything that they do is factually based, but it's done in a really fun, cartoonish kind of manner. And you can get the bullet points just like that. And you can get them in a really entertaining kind of manner as well. So I definitely recommend people watch Oversimplified, and especially about the Bolshevik Revolution. Here it is. The Russian Revolution Oversimplified. The Russian Revolution Oversimplified. Part 1 and Part 2.
Really good.
These two right here. I wonder if we play any of these, if we'll get copyright strikes. We probably will, so we won't. But go watch these two at the very least. The Russian Revolution and Part 1 and Part 2, which is their latest ones. And then you can watch the one about...
Prohibition one is
The Prohibition one is really good too. But, I mean, watch them all. I mean, they're 20-minute 20-minute videos, and you'll be very, very, very entertained, I guarantee you.
Yeah, it's fun. They're funny.
Yeah, and you'll get a lot of the facts as to how things transpired. This is a brilliant way to teach kids, in my opinion. Brilliant.
Yeah,
brilliant.
It really is, because history's always been fun to me. That's just who I am. But history can be fun for everybody if you put it in the right if you do it the right way. It's history. Especially if it's history that not a whole lot of people know a whole lot about. Like the Bolshevik Revolution, they specifically leave out the Bolshevik Revolution and things like that from most even college level history classes.
I'm going to play a little bit, and hopefully they won't give us too many. Okay, I can keep going on and on and on with this, but that's essentially the part that they're talking about here in this document.
I don't know if that's the part they're talking about.
No, okay.
I think that was later. I mean, that was. The Oversimplified one was before, and this was around 1944, the 1920s to the 1940s, and what you're talking about was like the late 1800s.
Okay, so watch Oversimplified.
Yeah,
please,
it's a great channel.
It'll give you some good.
It is a great channel.
Yeah. All right. Agriculture, industry, et cetera, thousands of Western technicians.
Germany played an especially significant role in the Soviet militarization, according to the secret. Well, just like we've had a huge role. I mean, ever since Nixon opened the world to China. I mean, that's like the one thing that everybody is saying he did right, which I don't think he did. I don't think he did a good thing by doing that. He opened the door to China. Okay, yeah, he opened the door to China, getting all of the military power that they didn't have before the 1960s. I mean, the 1960s were really when China started to become an actual threat militarily. Before that time, they didn't have a whole lot of technology. They had no real advantage over other militaries. Now they do. And we gave them a lot of that ability.
We do that all everywhere.
Across the board.
We did that with Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We did that with ISIS.
Yep.
ISIL.
The
Islamic State.
We always seem to give the
We've created all of these.
Artillery and guns to the people that hate us.
Somebody mentioned Kissinger in the chat. Kissinger's supposed to be speaking at the virtual inauguration of Joe Biden. Also, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is supposedly speaking at the inauguration of Joe Biden. And it's funny because we did a show about deepfakes. And in one of the parts we cut out, we had to cut out part of the TED Talk, but they used Tom Hanks in the TED Talk to demonstrate the deep fakes.
Wow.
Tom Hanks supposedly fired up the Hadron Collider. And Tom Hanks is involved in a lot of Mandela effects. Tom Hanks has also been the center of a bunch of pizza-related stuff, too.
Right.
You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
You can't make it up. But we do have to wrap up the show here in 12 minutes, so do you want to go over any more of this document here? Again, this
I've
is
never
called...
read. You need to send it to me.
Okay, it's called New Lies for Old.
New Lies for Old. Okay.
Type in New Lies for Old PDF and you can get the entire document here.
Cool.
But it basically lays out Operation Trust. I mean, that's just one part of the document. But I had another document here that I wanted to go over, but I think we might go over it next time.
That is really...
It's the playbook for a color revolution.
Yeah,
essentially.
we need to go over that next time.
Stages of the color revolution.
Yeah.
The whole process takes in place stages and clearly constructs any event in society can serve as a catalyst. Non-signing or, on the contrary, signing an international agreement, resident murder, unpopular reform, corruption scandal, elections, etc. Step 1, information explosion, catalyst, tasks to transform. Here, why don't you go through this real quick?
To transform information into a mechanism for starting protests.
Okay, so we saw that with BLM. We saw that with all these people that they were heralding up and holding up as, martyrs. St. George Floyd, who held a gun to a pregnant woman's belly during a home invasion. All of that. That's all, and the double standard, too.
St. George.
The double standard of the oppressed can do no wrong. Right. The oppressors always do wrong even when they're defending themselves.
Right.
So, okay,
exactly.
Go on, please.
To achieve the effect of the information explosion, which will become a catalyst for action. Instruments controlled by the media, controlled NCOs, that's non-corporate organizations, and supervised experts. Method, nonviolent struggle.
Cloud TV.
Official statements, communication with a wide audience. Implementation. The main thing at this stage is to prepare the public opinion that the only way out of the situation is a mass protest action in the central square and the transition from virtual struggle to street level. All mechanisms of influence on society are applied. NCOs and brain centers declare the need to act. The media and social media dispel the wave of discontent, quoting public figures and opposition politicians about the need to fight. It's important to capture the information agenda and pump it to a critical level in the minds of the people. It is necessary to force them to go out and not just write angry posts in social networks.
Okay, so what did we see all summer long? Politicians all calling for violence. Go out there and tell them that they're not welcome. Go out there and protest in the streets. Even Don Lemon, who says that protests aren't supposed to be violent? Who said they're supposed to be polite, et cetera, et cetera? Well, the Constitution says that. The Constitution says people have a right to peacefully assemble.
Exactly.
But the narrative has been pushed all summer long. Go out and commit violence. Go out and commit violence. Go out and commit violence.
And call it peaceful protests.
And call it peaceful protests, yes.
Yep. Examples. Ukraine 2004. On November 21st, 2004. You need to send me this PDF too.
Okay.
Ukraine 2004. On November 21st, 2004, the Central Election Commission of Ukraine announced the preliminary results of the second round of presidential elections, according to which Viktor Yanukovych, who was prime minister at the time, won with a 3% advantage. International observers have reported numerous violations, and Yushchenko's associates have falsified the vote, urging their supporters to go out and defend their choice. Opposition leaders announced the beginning of a nonviolent struggle for the recognition of Yushchenko's victory. The pro-American candidate himself said on November 23rd, "The path to compromise through the demonstration of the people's will is the only way that will help us find a way out of this conflict." Thus, the National Salvation Committee announces a nationwide political strike.
This is creepy because it's sounding a lot like the Trump movement.
Yeah.
And again, I revere this man because of what he's done in the last 4 years, and that's the only reason. But it could have all been part of a plan. I don't know. I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that we have to look at everything from all sides.
We have to look at everything from all sides.
Yeah.
We can't just refuse to. Somebody, I guess if he's gonna write it in a reply on a Facebook post, I might as well say who it is. Peter Gorman is a High Times journalist that came on our show several times in the past.
He was always super nice.
He was always super nice with us. Everything was always so nice. That's the best way to describe it. So nice. And then the whole Trump thing happened, and he literally said, "I would rather live with blinders on than to look at everything under a microscope like you do. I would rather live with blinders on," and that just, I couldn't believe.
People are saying Tom Hanks is dead. I don't know. I don't have any information to prove one way or another. I know that they have deepfake technology. I know that they can use deepfake technology. I know a lot of people have been pointing to clones. In my opinion, deepfakes is much
that's much more likely.
Much more likely. If you watch our last video on deepfakes, we explain it. But essentially, a deepfake will cut the face out, and then it will superimpose the face on an actor. So people say the ears don't lie. The ears don't lie. Realistically, it could be a clone. It could be a deepfake. It could be anything. Or he may not be dead. I really don't know. I don't have any evidence to suggest one way or another.
So there's a movie that came out in 2013 that I tried to get you to watch with me, and you never really got into it. But it's called The Congress. Remember The Congress?
Mm-hmm.
The plot, the subplot of that movie was basically they're replacing the actors with CGI, and so actors are becoming completely by I think it was like 2040.
Wasn't there an article that just came out that said that they were nominating a CGI actor for an Emmy?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but the plot is Robin Wright plays a fictionalized version of herself. She plays Robin Wright as an aging actress with a reputation for being fickle and unreliable, so much so that nobody's willing to offer her roles. Her son suffers from Usher syndrome that is slowly destroying his sight and hearing. So Jeff Green, a representative of a virtual entertainment company, Miramax Studios, it's supposed to be making fun of Paramount and Miramax, comes to her with an offer to buy her likeness and digitize her into a computer-animated version of herself. After initially turning down the offer, she reconsiders after realizing she may be unable to find work with the emergence of this new technology, and agrees to sell the film rights to her digital image to Miramax Studios in exchange for a hefty sum of money, and she promises never to act again. After her body is digitally scanned, the studio will be able to make films starring her using only computer-generated characters.
Yeah, okay, so let me jump in real quick because we're running out of time.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You know, Peter Cushing, they resurrected him for the new Star Wars. My favorite,
Audrey Hepburn.
My favorite one that they did was Terminator Genesis.
Yeah.
Terminator Genesis, and that's when they had the scene of Terminator 1, and they had Arnold Schwarzenegger, young Arnold Schwarzenegger, fighting older Arnold Schwarzenegger. So that was a brilliant scene, in my opinion, but it goes to show they're already implementing this technology, so who's to say if he's alive or dead?
And they could be replacing a lot of these actors.
You can't trust what's on the screen. So let's move on real quick to the rest of this.
Tunisia in 2010, public self-immolation. Somebody set themselves on fire. On December 17th, 2010, a street vendor of fruits and vegetables in Sidi Bouzid, Mohammed Bouazizi, whose goods were confiscated by the authorities. It is assumed that this was a way to extort a bribe. Public self-immolation initiated a series of similar incidents. He set himself on fire.
There's the cover from Rage Against the Machine album.
Oh, I can't. I don't like to look at it. It's assumed that this was a way to extort a bribe. Public self-immolation initiated a series of similar incidents among people in such a situation, with the funeral often turning into protest demonstrations that led to the fall of the local regime. Bosnia and Herzegovina, 2011. I never know how to say that country's name. The immediate cause of the riots was the closure of factories and firms in Tuzla, the country's third largest city, which is the center of a large industrial region. Ukraine in 2014, Yanukovych stated that the priority for Ukraine is integration into the European Union, and with the customs union, he considered it necessary to build cooperation in the 3+1 format at the sectoral level. On November 21st, a few days before the Eastern Partnership Summit in Vilnius, scheduled for November 28th through the 29th, the main event of which was to be Ukraine's signing of an association agreement with the European Union. The Ukrainian government announced that it was suspending preparations for the conclusion of this agreement for the security of Ukraine and the restoration of lost production volumes in trade and economic relations with the Russian Federation. After that, a number of bloggers, journalists, and political supporters of European integration called for everyone to go to the Maidan. Okay, so that's also around the same time that George Soros started an anti-corruption group in the Ukraine as well, and that was connected to the Biden family.
Yeah,
and
that's
Hunter
the
Biden.
whole Hunter Biden scandal right there.
And what they were doing. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say George Soros is behind BLM, Antifa, all of them.
And not just that, but so this group that George Soros started in the Ukraine, what it was doing was basically getting rid of all of the politicians, all the local and country's politicians that were not in support of the deep state, and getting rid of them through blackmail, through whatever they needed to do, and then putting in place the people that would work with the Bidens, people that would work with CCP, people that would work with all the deep state, the child trafficking, the drug trafficking, all of it. Armenia, 2018. In 2015, Armenian President Sargsyan, I think that's how it said, held a constitutional referendum in the country, which resulted in the transfer of power to the prime minister. Constitutional amendments changed the system of government in a semi-presidential country and turned it into a parliamentary republic. And in April 2018, he moved to the post of prime minister. Stage 2. So in other words, they changed the whole structure of government using these methods.
And that's exactly what we saw over the course of 2019 and 2020. We saw a complete restructuring of the voting system.
Yep, and also a complete and an ideological restructuring of the fact that it's okay if the deep state doesn't like a president. You can bash him all you want. You can threaten to kill him. You can have pictures of actors holding their head up that they've beheaded him.
That's a great point.
And get rid of the presidency altogether and basically make it to where he doesn't even exist.
That's a great point. I mean, I talked about Nancy Pelosi at the beginning of the show, calling General Milley. Every time Nancy Pelosi appears on TV, she says, don't listen to the president. He doesn't know what he's talking about. During this impeachment, they actually changed the rules now. They changed the rules. Before, you couldn't bash the president. You couldn't call him a white supremacist. You couldn't call him a racist.
Right.
They changed the rules to allow them to call him a white supremacist, a racist, and all kinds of names.
Yeah,
they've changed the rules. Pray that they don't change them further.
Right, exactly. And the only way they could get away with it was by providing this fake, movement that basically makes him out to be an oppressor, that is a tyrant, a dictator, who's racist, who's a white supremacist, and that he's fomenting white supremacism in this country when he's not and never has. And everything that's been the only reason why they've been able to change the rules. It's the only justification that they could find to put in there, and that's a very, very weak justification. But for some reason,
that's true. We're running short on time because we have some stuff going on at 2 o'clock that we have to get ready for at 1:30. Stage 2: mass demonstrations of people dissatisfied with the authorities. Tasks: bring a large number of people to protest using the central square of the street of the country. So large numbers of people protesting in several different places. Instruments: controlled by the media, controlled by the MC, controlled by NCOs, supervised experts, political parties. We've seen all all of this transpiring on both sides of the spectrum, at the Capitol building, and we saw it throughout the BLM protests and so on and so forth. What did we have here? Supervised experts. What is that woman's name? Susan Rice?
Susan Rice.
Susan Rice. No, the woman that was charged with domestic terrorism, who's sitting on the chair.
Yeah, that's Susan Rice.
Are you sure?
Let me look it up. Susan Powell, maybe? Susan something with the Weather Underground. Susan Rosenberg?
Rosenberg, that's
Yeah.
it. All right, I wanted to get the name right for the record. Susan Rosenberg, she was arrested of domestic terrorism with the Weather Underground, and now she's a chairwoman for Black Lives Matter. She was
Right.
pardoned by Obama and from a 50-year sentence. Her sentence was commuted. So they brought experts who had done this before with the Weather Underground in 1968 to oversee what was going on in the summer of 2020.
Right,
And
with
this
the
was
BLM.
all, supervised experts.
She does fundraising and administrative work for BLM.
You've even heard BLM leaders saying we're trained Marxists. Well, who the hell trained them?
Right.
Supervised experts trained them.
Yep, exactly.
Method: nonviolent protest and conviction, group action, symbolic public action, processions, public meetings, etc., etc. That was wave one. That was when they were shutting down the freeways. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And so that obviously didn't work, but it pissed a lot of people off because it wasn't about protesting against the government. It was about creating oppressed versus oppressors.
Right.
And everybody who wanted to go to work and just move on with their day are the oppressors,
Mm-hmm.
and those who are blocking the freeways are the oppressed. That's why it wasn't any protest against the government. It was a protest against the people. Burn people's businesses down, burn people's homes down,
Right.
attack random people in the streets. It had nothing to do with the politicians. It had to do with creating the divide, the two categories of oppressed versus oppressor.
Symbolic public actions could also be tearing down statues,
tearing down statues, yes.
of freaking Abraham Lincoln, who made slavery illegal.
He fought against slavery.
He fought against slavery.
Yeah.
And they're tearing that down. Processions, public meetings, implementation. People express their opinions and formulate a demand for power. It's necessary to show the mass character and participation of all social groups in society and protest. It's so you've got people of all colors and stuff like that in these groups. It's advisable to organize a march through the streets of the city with the final rally or performance of the leaders. It's necessary to use flags, banners, and streamers. That's why you have Black Lives Matter written on the ground on Black Lives Matter Boulevard, and why you had to change that to Black Lives Matter Boulevard.
And Enrique, I don't remember his last name, the leader of the Proud Boys, was arrested prior to January 6th for supposedly burning down a Black Lives Matter flag or taking down a Black Lives Matter flag, but there's no evidence of that flag even existing or that action even happening.
Right.
But they still arrested him. His white supremacist group, and this guy is like Puerto Rican or something like that.
Yeah.
His name's Enrique Martinez or something like that, and he's browner than I am.
He's Latino, yeah.
You know? But they're still a white supremacist group because
they're a
they're
white
the
supremacist
oppressors. They're not the oppressed.
Well, and there was another woman who was she was stabbed the night of the election. She was walking down the street with some of the other Proud Boys people, and some of them were black, some of them were white. She was a black woman who was stabbed, and what they were trying to do was they were trying to help an elderly man not get attacked because there were some Antifa or BLM type of punks that were messing with this elderly man. They were trying to defend him, and she ends up getting stabbed. She's black, and she's supportive. She's part of this Proud Boys thing. So it's not a white supremacist group, but it's held up as a white supremacist group.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
Well, Black Lives Matter isn't about Black lives either.
Right, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
If it was, I'd be behind it 100%.
Right. To use this important to use this stage as an information explosion. The whole country should know about it. At this stage, declare 3 to 5 requirements that interest a wide range of people. Of these requirements, lay one impracticable: to call supporters to go to a peaceful protest in all cities. The number at this stage does not matter. The main coverage of the whole country. It is necessary to announce the next action, when and where everyone should go. Positive theses about the protesters and their goals are dispersed in all media and social media. Yes,
that's exactly what we saw.
BLM, DoorDash, and all these other companies giving money to BLM and supporting BLM and being about social justice.
Everybody.
Yep. Egypt.
The NBA, who shot themselves in the foot.
Yes, they did.
But they're owned by China anyways.
Right. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Egypt.
It's giving examples.
January 19th.
2011.
Here's some examples. So let's just skip through this.
Unless
you want to go through the example in Egypt, just in Egypt.
Okay. On January 19th, 2011, the former head of the IAEA of Egyptian origin, Mohammed al-Baradi, in an interview with Austrian journalists, linked the situation in Egypt with Tunisia and said that the President Mubarak could be overthrown because people are waiting for change.
Rope and chains.
A call.
Rope and chains.
A call.
Everybody thought Barack Obama was saying hope and chains.
Oh,
he was already saying rope and chains.
Oh, okay. So I guess Khalid Said was killed by the government, and he was he may have not even been a protester. It may have been just like the George Floyd situation, where somebody gets killed and a call appeared on the Facebook page. We are all Khalid Said. January 25th, 2011, Day of Wrath. In fact, for the first time in history, a pre-announced revolution began. Yeah, we're going to schedule the revolution to start on January 25th. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets. Her ram was precisely the youth who learned about it from the internet. January 25th, 2011, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of Egyptian cities, just like tens of thousands of people took to the streets in American cities about George Floyd, a man who held a pregnant woman at gunpoint in her own home during a home invasion several years ago.
Oh, held the gun to her belly.
And now he's St. George.
General protests to organize protests in all major cities.
Yep.
Of the state, using central locations controlled by the media, controlled NCOs, supervised experts and bloggers. Exact same thing. Nonviolent protests and conviction, group action, symbolic public action,
processions,
et cetera.
Public meetings, Serbia in 2000. Implementation. Holding protests in major cities of the country, always in central squares and streets. The number of participants isn't important. The main thing is to start the fermentation process in the whole society. Yeah, that's why they said, okay, I've got a screenshot right here, and I keep it on hand just in case there's ever a situation like this where I can pull it up and show people that here it is. Health experts support anti-police protests.
Send it in Skype.
Yeah. Here's that double standard we were talking about. Damn it. Okay. There we go. Health experts support anti-police protests. As public health advocates, we do not condemn these gatherings as risky for COVID-19 transmission. This should not be confused with a permissive stance on all gatherings, particularly protests against stay-at-home orders.
Double standard.
Yep. It's the oppressed can do no wrong. It's totally okay for them to do something, but it's not okay for other people to do the same thing. You see what I mean? Yeah, so that's what that is. It's our burning down cities over the whole summer, over 100 days. I think it was like 120 days of
in Oregon
of setting streets on fire,
taking over an entire city block in Seattle. Back to the Seattle fentanyl trafficking, taking over a police station that had evidence that they were trying to destroy.
Yep.
All of that. It's okay.
Yep.
But if you go out and protest stay-at-home orders, then
yep, you need to be arrested. They were calling for people to be arrested and then, and demonized. And not only that, but it's worse than just being arrested, because now with social media and with doxing and things like that, I am so glad that neither of us works for a corporation, because we would have lost our jobs 10 times over by now.
Oh, for sure.
Because what they do is they call your work and they tell your boss that they should fire you because you're racist, or you're a white supremacist, or you're a horrible person, or, you were protesting the stay-at-home orders.
Real quick, let me jump in for M. Hawkins. Best
yeah.
To say hello to M. Hawkins.
There's
Hi.
the best at baby.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why she went to daddy and not mommy.
Because she's daddy's kitty.
Aw.
Because daddy has the nails.
Yeah. Right now, daddy has the nails. Mommy doesn't have the nails. Okay.
So let's move on, because we have to be out of here at 1:30.
So yeah. Implementation, holding process. Okay. Because of this. Okay. Because of this, Western funds always invest in regional organizations. The effect of the whole country is important for them. It's imperative to involve local media and experts in this process. The topic should be discussed at all levels. Separately, materials are being prepared about regional protest leaders and local authorities. You can use, and that's why there's a BLM in every major city in the U.S. right now. There's a BLM office, essentially. You can use the regional problems that have accumulated over a long time. So let's say you're trying to do it in Seattle. You talk about the homeless situation combined with BLM. In Georgia, you talk about the poverty situation along with BLM. And so you make everything about social justice in the brand that appeals to the most people in that particular area. And it's going to be different for New York than it is for Georgia than it is for Seattle. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's appealing to more people than it naturally would.
Yeah. They give some examples here, but we're going to run through them.
Yeah. Stage 4, sharpening the protest tasks to conduct unauthorized protests across the country, to start arrests of participants, provocation against the authorities to intensify the protests.
Defund the police.
Defund the police. Instruments.
Defund the police.
Controlled by the media, controlled NGOs.
NPOs.
I don't know what NPOs are.
So method, rejection of social cooperation,
ostracism of individuals, social disobedience, physical intervention. Implementation. Public organizations and activists will organize dozens of actions in the Capitol that impede or completely stop the work of state institutions. So, like we saw last summer, whenever they were on the road and preventing people they prevented an ambulance from getting to the hospital, didn't they?
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally missed what you said. NPOs are nonprofit organizations.
Oh, nonprofits.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, nonprofits. Implementation. And public organizations and activists will organize dozens of actions in the Capitol that impede or completely stop the work of state institutions. Permanent car races with flags, recumbent protests, disabled persons, children, women's, and student movements are involved in the protest. I read that too, that in an EDS group, they were trying to get EDS people to be involved with BLM because, we're all persecuted, At this stage of the protest, flash mobs constantly appear and bright characters appear: a piano, a girl with a poster or a carriage, media for a picture. Bright moments are needed to demonstrate a peaceful protest is comprehensive, supported by all sectors of society. In other words, we all support BLM. Everybody's a BLM supporter, everybody. And if you're not, oh my God, how dare you? Mm-hmm. Stage 5, radicalization protest.
Okay, this is where we move to the burning buildings.
Tasks to translate the protest into a radical course, to connect large enterprises and industries to the process.
Okay, this is when we got all those people, all those corporations saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. They even wrote TFR and demanded that Cherie and I be removed from TFR because we weren't going along with BLM. And we're the owners of TFR.
We're the owners of TFR, so it didn't work. Okay. To organize mass actions of disobedience throughout the country with the seizure of state institutions.
Do you remember when they were raiding all the state capitol buildings?
Yep.
And Nancy Pelosi was like, "Welcome.
Yep.
We take a knee with you.
We take a knee with you.
Yes, we're totally for it. Come raid the Capitol. Come raid the Capitol, because on January 6th we got something big planned for that."
Yep. Instruments controlled by the media, trade unions, and radical organizations such as BLM and Antifa.
And we saw all those people getting fired for speaking out against it.
Right. Method: refusal of social cooperation, refusal of political cooperation, strike of special groups, ostracism of certain people, limited strikes, public disobedience, physical intervention, refusal to support the authorities, defund the police, government personnel, social intervention, psychological intervention, political intervention. So psychological intervention is calling Trump supporters crazy. Yeah. And saying that they need to be institutionalized, they need medication, et cetera, et cetera. Realization: the call of supporters for mass actions of disobedience, blocking roads, authorities, storming state institutions, an attack on government officials. Most of
we saw all of this.
We've seen all of this.
You know, the blocking roads. And then we saw them all storming, like Rand Paul and all of them as they were coming out of Congress.
They were telling people, if you see these people in a restaurant, you need to, basically stalk them.
Yeah.
Make it known that they're not welcome there. The main goal of all actions is to cause a tough reaction of the authorities. Supporters must be beaten up or killed. Activists seize, like that woman up in Washington that got shot. Activists seize state authorities, organize headquarters, and an alternative system of government. At this stage, the CR moves into the process of non-return to peaceful technologies. The media provide a vivid picture, grab moments of beating protesters, and aggravate the situation in society. It's necessary to demonstrate to the world that this is a non-handshaking power and law enforcement agents are sadists. They want to hurt you. They're pigs. They just want to hurt people. They only get into law enforcement because they want to hurt people, etc., etc. Defund the police.
And a lot of examples given here.
Yep. 6th stage.
International pressure.
Task: to make the ruling elite abandon the use of force to resolve the conflict in society, to build up a negative attitude towards the government through international organizations and foundations, to form in the world community a negative attitude towards the power of this country. And this is why we see certain countries the way we see them.
Well, this is also why we see states not wanting National Guard called in.
Right.
Where was it?
Letting
Minnesota?
Things burn.
Minnesota wanted National Guard. Trump sent them in. Everything was done in 2 days.
2 days, and everything was calm again. Seattle, they let it burn for how many months? I'm sorry to interrupt.
It was 120 days.
120 days they let Seattle burn.
The summer of love.
Instruments: diaspora, parliamentarians, supervised experts, and foreign media. Method: international government actions, long-distance waiver of economic cooperation, government action, implementation, using information events inside the country. It's necessary to organize actions to support protesters around the world. Diaspora: international NCOs and activists hold events near the embassy or intercity agencies. Constant statements by diplomats and politicians. The condemnation of world celebrities and athletes. We already see that. The introduction of sanctions against the apologists of power. We already see that with who's that stupid woman, that stupid girl, saying that everybody that donated big to Trump or was complicit needs to be
AOC.
Yeah, AOC was saying everybody needs to be put on. They need to start making lists of people that were apologists for Trump. All these actions lead to international isolation and pressure on power. The local elite is looking for a way to negotiate, and the government begins to lose control over the officials. World media at this stage demonstrate support for the protesters, that all citizens who left the country are against this government.
So we saw
They did it in Serbia in 2000, Lebanon, Iran in 2009, Libya in 2011. Well, we were there we were not there for that, but we were on the air for that, and we exposed a lot of that. Libya in 2011 during this conflict. So stage 7, the crack of power: tasks to force government officials and politicians to go over to the side of the protesters to provide a split of power. Instruments: veteran organizations and trade unions. They haven't been able to get the vets on their side on this one. Not yet.
We just got another donation from
thank you, Stasioser 123.
Thank you very much for the love.
Thank you so much. You make us smile too.
Refusal of political cooperation, actions of government personnel, duplication of state bodies, alternative government. Realization, the resistance of the authorities and the opposition is reaching a new level. It is worthwhile to achieve the rejection of power of civil servants, using international contracts and business to influence representatives of the elite. Civil servants can be bribed, or they can simply promise new posts. You need to use former employees laid off for various reasons. They have good contacts and connections. You should not demand support of the opposition or dismissal. It is enough to sabotage decrees. Separate local government structures can vote and adopt resolutions against the government or secession from the state. So we saw how a lot of these states were going against Trump's recommendations, against Trump's orders. Even in Texas, the mayor of Austin has been trying to do these totalitarian lockdown orders, and Austin has become very, very liberal. And the governor had to step in and say, "No, you're not going to do this in my state. We have proper safety measures in place.
Right.
You're not going to shut down businesses. You're not going to shut down restaurants,
and
you have to actually take them to court."
Yeah.
But we're even seeing this with the mayor of Austin going up against the state of Texas.
Right.
So we even see this right here.
Yeah.
Veteran organizations and former employees agree on the transition to the side of the opposition of the military and law enforcement agencies. Influencing can be provided through relatives or compromising on individuals.
Well, they're trying to do that right now, and they're not. And most of the vets are on Trump's side, 100%. I mean, because they understand what's going on. But they're demonizing the hell out of them right now. They're basically saying oath keepers are terrorists automatically. I mean, they're all terrorists.
We're running out of time, sweetie.
Sorry,
so,
go ahead.
This is a critical stage for the government and demonstrates to society that the monolithic structure of government is crumbling. The media is hysterical that the structure of power is crumbling, that those who aren't taking the side of the protesters are normal guys, and those who is against the protesters are the culprits. So those who are... the position of the soldiers or the police is surely shown that they are for the people and will defend them, etc., etc. So this is we haven't quite reached this state yet, but and then 8 bloody events to achieve a complete change of power in the country, recognition of the country's leadership as criminals, seizure of power, radical organizations controlled by the media, parliamentarians. Political intervention, power intervention, removal from power, implementation. The shooting of protesters or law enforcement officers leads to the transition of the protest into the phase of armed confrontation. Prepared armed groups seize police stations and army units handing out weapons. That happened in Seattle. Assault troops are going to break through the capture all government agencies. Separate groups are satisfied with the hunt for senior government officials and the president. The main objective of the protest creators is to achieve a complete change of power in the country. At this stage, if the power goes to the end, a civil war begins. The media are working on the image of power that they are ready to destroy for anyone for the sake of power. They are open to calls for seizure of power.
You saw that on the Zoom call, the private Zoom call that BLM, Antifa, AOC, and a bunch of other extremist, truly extremist activists, they call themselves activists, were on, where they literally are discussing a coup and what they're going to say in the media, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, we've already reached that stage. And then
power
9.
grab. To achieve the transfer of power in any way so that parliament and or internment interim council instructs opposition representatives to form a new system of power controlled by the media, controlled by NCOs, supervised experts, radical organization, parliamentarians. Implementation. The crowd, having seized all the state institutions and having achieved the abdication of the dictator, imposes its demands on the parliament until they change all the key supporters of the old government and not deal with them. The protesters remain on the streets and are a scarecrow. Parliamentary voting under the pressure of the street and or death of a dictator. The whole world should look at it as a victory for democracy. So,
and that's what they called the whole Biden win, is a victory for democracy. Oh, it's a victory for democracy. Oh, our democracy is finally
Trump,
safe. Yeah.
Execute him.
Yeah.
Impeach him, et cetera, et cetera. Trump represents the Constitution.
Yeah, he does.
Trump represents
a free people.
A free people.
Yeah.
And they are bringing in this fake democracy. They've even called a dictator. They've called him a dictator for 4 years, a dictator. And here it says, parliamentary voting under the pressure of the street and or the death of a dictator. So they've called him a dictator over and over and over again. They've said this election is taking democracy back and so on and so forth. But in the end, it's all cuckoo to me. It's all cuckoo to me. So anyways, we do have to get out of here because we have something scheduled at 2 o'clock that we have to get ready for. We hope that this has been informative for people out there. Let's continue watching what happens, and we'll see where this all goes to. But it looks like this has all been an orchestrated color revolution by the CCP. And at the end of the day, I don't know. It's an interesting game. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting time to be alive.
Yeah, it is.
I wouldn't pick any other time period to be alive. I'm so glad to be alive right now to witness everything that's going on.
Yeah, me too. We have front row seats.
We have front row seats.
To the end of the world.
To the end of the world, yes. I've even got my Anubis shirt on today.
Uh-huh.
So
I've got my Say Shot shirt on.
Yeah.
So.
Let's see it to the end.
Yeah.
Let's see it to the end. And know this, we're always protected. We're just the observers. We're just the programmers. And because we're the programmers, we are protected.
Yeah.
Project Bluebeam may come up the pike. I wish we had more time, but we do have to go.
Well, next time we'll talk about Bluebeam.
Yeah.
And we'll get into more of the new agey kind of stuff that's been tried on people's minds since the 1960s, because that's going to get into more of the stuff that we like to talk about esoterically here on the show anyway.
Well, I mean, this is okay.
Politics is great, but
to sum it all up, it's interesting because after we've gone through all these documents and after looking at all these cards that are being played here and what we're hoping for, it seems like either way we go, we're still going to head to the same place. See, the thing is, if Trump strikes on the 20th and arrests everybody in government and creates a new republic, is that part of the color revolution playbook?
I wonder that myself.
I have to ask those questions.
Yeah.
I have to ask those questions.
Destabilization of any kind.
But at the same time, we know that this whole thing has been a sham. We know that President-elect Biden was voted in a free and fair election.
Right.
With many, many, many inconsistencies, but no evidence of widespread voter fraud because that's what YouTube's terms and conditions say.
Yeah, of course.
We're not even allowed to talk about it.
Yep.
So that's suspect in and of itself.
There's a few things you're not allowed to talk about right now.
There's a lot we're not allowed to talk about right now, which is suspect.
This is so messed up.
This right here talks about a military takeover, and there's a good possibility that Trump will hand the government over to the military for military tribunal. But again, we're dealing with the puppets themselves. The question comes in is, who is Trump? Where's his heart? I feel that Trump is the real deal. I don't think that he's part of this. If he was part of it, they wouldn't be attacking him so much. They would be attacking him to a point to where they can attack him, but they're trying to destroy him. They're trying to destroy his family name. They're trying to destroy everything that he stands for. They're trying to destroy all of his supporters. They're trying to destroy literally everything. And it doesn't really seem to line up, because let me tell you why. It doesn't seem to line up with the idea that Trump's part of it, because if you already have control, why would you need to create all of this? Like, what's the purpose? Like, there's no purpose. Like, the government's already controlled by the deep state. So why let go of control, or even the illusion of letting go of control? Why? Why do that? If Barack Obama was president during the year 2020, everybody would have still gone along with the mask mandates. Everybody would have gone along with everything. Everything would have happened exactly the way it was if you had Obama or Biden in office. So why bring Trump in at the risk of him coming in as the fall guy, as a scapegoat, destroying his entire name, his family's name, his business acquaintances? There's banks saying they're not going to do business with him, so on and so forth. Why would he do that to his family name? It doesn't make sense that he's part of the agenda. But we have to ask ourselves, is he? And if he is, well, it's 6 one way, half a dozen another. We're still heading into the same place that we were. If he's not, then we could turn around and we can flip this completely. Right. I know one thing for sure. We at least have a sliver of hope with Trump. We have no hope with the other side.
It's not that we have no hope. It's that the environment is so hostile that we begin to lose faith in even ourselves. Because the environment around us also, we do create reality with our own thoughts and perceptions, like I said earlier on the show. But the problem is, if they're creating the environment and they're allowed to 100% create that environment, how strong are we on an individual level? Are we strong enough mentally? Are we strong enough emotionally? Are we strong enough psychologically to deal with having an environment around us that is 100% controlled by the bad guys, basically? That it is a constant, in your face, in your ears, through your eyes, bombardment of propaganda, bombardment of hatred towards the opposite people of who should be hated, and love towards a system that is preventing people from being able to be truly free, not even breathing freely anymore. We will have that for a long, long time if it goes in that direction. And it's like, it's going to test us psychologically and mentally and emotionally, and we have to be ready for that if that happens. And so, but as organic consciousness, we can not only change ourselves pretty easily as far as psychologically and mentally. We're very strong because we're programmers, but we can also change the reality around us in ways that other people can't. And that's because we can affect the NPCs on a personal level. I'm not talking about like throughout the whole country, but like in your sphere, you can affect the NPCs around you to be more like you and less like that environment. And you can make it a lot easier for yourself by finding a personal, like, inner tribe that you can count on to be there for you and that you can interact back and forth with, because I would not have survived this long, I don't think, if I didn't have you.
That is very true,
so
sweetie.
Create a tribe.
We have to go.
All right.
We have to go.
We love you guys.
Somebody asked really quick if we can make Michael sent a donation. Thank you for the donation. Can you make a separate video of this last section so we can share it? We can do that for you. But what you can also do, and this is a little feature on YouTube, is you can scroll over to wherever you want to share. And so let's say I want to share it from this point. You right click and then click copy video URL at current time.
Oh, that's really cool.
You didn't know that?
I knew about the one where you go to share and then you go to the timestamp option.
No, you can go. Yeah, you can share it at current time.
You can just right click it. I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can right click it, and then when you share it, it'll take the person automatically to to that part of the video. So, but yeah, we can go ahead and put another video up with the stuff we covered in the end. I know we covered a lot here in this 3 hours.
I'm sorry.
But we do have to go because we have somebody coming at 2 o'clock and we have to get ready for them. So, kiss the one you love right now. You never know last time is going to be. Fear not. This is all part of the deintegration process from the Matrix. We have to deintegrate from the Matrix. What are we going to do? Build a utopian world and then it gets shut down and then we're like, oh no, we don't want to leave.
Exactly.
And it's like, well, we're supposed to.
Right.
It's time to go home. It's time to go home. Take off this uniform and leave the show.
I can't
and
wait
I'm
to take off
waiting
this
in the
uniform.
cell because I have to know. Have I been guilty all this time?
No, I love all of you guys out there, and we appreciate you joining us today.
It'll all be okay. I promise.
It's all going to be fine.
Kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. Enjoy every single moment. Savor every bite. Savor every kiss. Savor every touch. Savor every sensation and live life to the fullest.
I know I do.
And we'll see you even further.
Beyond the veil.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
And gals.